It is 3 in the morning. The room is a sanctuary of silence, wrapped in shadow and stillness. The city outside has finally surrendered to a deep and quiet breath. But here, lying in the dark, your mind is a storm. It is a relentless cascade of thought, a theater where every worry, every regret, and every possible future plays out on an endless loop. There is the email you should have worded differently, the deadline looming at work, the unpaid bill on the kitchen counter, the strange look a friend gave you yesterday. Old conversations are replayed, new ones are rehearsed. The past is a museum of mistakes, and the future is a landscape of potential disasters. You crave silence. You long for the simple peace of a mind at rest, for the elusive off switch to this churning machine inside your skull. But you cannot find it. You simply lie there, a prisoner of your own consciousness, waiting for an exhaustion so deep that it finally claims you. This experience, this quiet desperation in the lonely hours of the night, is not a personal failure. It is the signature ailment of our modern world. We live in an age of perpetual motion, a culture that glorifies busyness and bombards us with information from the moment we wake until the moment we collapse. Our minds, like muscles overtrained and never allowed to heal, have forgotten the art of stillness. This state of constant, low-grade anxiety, this unending internal monologue, has become our new normal. We have accepted the noise as an unavoidable price of living, a permanent tenant in the house of our minds. But what if it is not? What if this turmoil is not an essential feature of life, but a condition born from a mind that has never been taught how to find its own center, how to rest in its own nature? Thousands of years ago, in a world without screens or schedules, a young prince named Siddhartha sat under a tree and recognized this same fundamental truth. He saw that even in a palace of luxury, the untrained mind was a source of profound and inescapable suffering. His journey was not one of creating a new religion to be believed, but of undertaking a deep, scientific exploration into the nature of his own mind. He wanted to understand its habits, its illusions, its capacity for both turmoil and for an unshakable peace. The path he discovered and later taught is not a system of dogma, but a practical science of the mind. It is a set of tools, a collection of insights, and a gentle, compassionate guide to understanding the very mechanism of our own thoughts. It offers the radical possibility that the peace we seek is not something to be found outside of ourselves, but a quiet space that already exists within, buried beneath the noise. This is an invitation to explore that path, to learn the art of quieting the storm, and to finally discover what it means to sleep in silence. There is a name for the ceaseless narrator in your head, the one who provides an unending commentary on your life. In Buddhist philosophy, it is called the monkey mind. The image is a perfect one. Picture a monkey in a tree, agitated and restless. It never stays on one branch for more than a moment. It swings from a branch of the past to a branch of the future, grabbing at a memory here, a worry there, chattering incessantly, never, ever still. This is the nature of the untrained human mind. It is not calm and clear like a deep lake. It is a frantic, noisy creature, forever leaping from one thought to the next, dragging you along with it on its chaotic journey. Let's watch this monkey for a moment. See how it swings to the past. It will grab a branch of regret, replaying a conversation from 10 years ago, dissecting every word, feeling the old sting of embarrassment or anger as if it were happening right now. It will find a branch of nostalgia, a sweet, sad memory of a time now gone, and cling to it, creating a painful contrast with the present. The past for the monkey mind is not a peaceful library of experience. It is a living, breathing drama, a courtroom where you are perpetually on trial for your own history, judged by an inner critic who is never satisfied. The monkey relives triumphs to feed its pride and relives failures to feed its insecurity. It is constantly foraging in the forests of yesterday, bringing back fruits that are often either bitter or have long since spoiled, and it insists that you taste them over and over again. Then, with a sudden, jerky movement, the monkey abandons the past and swings wildly towards the future. This is its favorite playground, a realm of infinite possibilities, most of them frightening. Here, it builds elaborate scenarios, detailed blueprints of everything that could possibly go wrong. It rehearses arguments that will likely never happen. It worries about health, finances, relationships, and the state of the world. It creates a to-do list so long and so demanding that the very thought of it is exhausting. This is the birthplace of anxiety. Anxiety is simply the monkey mind living in a future that does not exist. It is a state of preparing for 100 different battles, most of which will never be fought. Even its pleasant fantasies of the future are a trap, for they create a standard of perfection that the messy, unpredictable reality of life can rarely meet. leading to inevitable disappointment. The monkey mind is a master architect of imaginary worlds, but it is a terrible guide for living in the real one. And what of the present moment? The monkey mind is terrified of the present. The branch of the here and now is too solid, too quiet. There is nothing to analyze, nothing to fear, nothing to regret. There is only the simple sensation of breathing, the feeling of the chair beneath you, the sound of the room around you. This is unbearably boring for the monkey. When it is forced to be in the present, it immediately begins to judge it. Is this good enough? Shouldn't I be doing something more productive? I don't like this feeling. I want a different one. It resists the isness of the present moment, always comparing it to an idealized past or a feared or desired future. It refuses to simply land. It is a creature addicted to movement, and the stillness of the now feels like a cage. In our modern world, we have built a paradise for this monkey. Your smartphone is its personal jungle, a forest with an infinite number of branches. Every notification, every email, every ping is a new branch to swing to. Every scroll through social media is an exercise in comparison, agitation, and desire, feeding the monkey a diet of envy and inadequacy. The news cycle provides a constant stream of future worries, a buffet of potential disasters for the monkey to gorge upon. We have created a culture that rewards this mental restlessness. We call it multitasking. We call it being productive. We fill every spare second of our lives waiting in line, commuting, even eating a meal with podcasts, videos, and articles. We are terrified of the silence, terrified of being alone with our own minds, because we have come to identify with the monkey's frantic energy. We believe its chatter is us. We have spent our whole lives actively training our minds to be distracted, and then we wonder why we cannot find a moment of peace. So what is the solution? When you see a monkey causing chaos, the first instinct is to try and catch it, to silence it, to force it into submission. And so we try to fight our own minds. We tell ourselves, stop thinking about that. Don't be anxious, just be happy. This is the equivalent of yelling at the monkey. It only makes it more agitated. It screeches back at you, swings more erratically, and the inner chaos only intensifies. The struggle against your own mind is a war you can never win, because the warrior and the enemy are one and the same. The very energy of resistance becomes another noisy branch for the monkey to play on. The wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a radically different approach. The first step is not to fight the monkey. It is not to judge the monkey or to hate it for its noise. The first step, the most profound and powerful step, is simply to acknowledge that it is there. It is the simple, gentle act of recognition. You are lying in bed, and the thoughts begin to race. Instead of being swept away by them, you take a metaphorical step back and you say, the monkey mind is awake tonight. It is chattering about work, that's all. No judgment, no fight. In that moment of simple, non-judgmental observation, something miraculous happens. A space is created. For the first time, you are not the monkey. You are the one who is watching the monkey. You have shifted from being the actor in the drama to being the audience. This is the beginning of freedom. The practice is to cultivate this awareness, this role of the calm, detached observer. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river. The thoughts are like leaves floating by on the current. A leaf of anger floats by. You don't jump in the river and wrestle with it. You don't try to stop it. You simply note, there is a leaf of anger. Then a leaf of sadness comes. You note sadness. A leaf of planning, a leaf of memory, a leaf of nonsense. You just sit and you watch them come and go. You realize they are not you. They are just events in the mind. The sky does not fight the clouds that pass through it. It allows them to come and go, remaining the vast, open sky. Your awareness is that sky. Your thoughts are just the weather. There is an old story that perfectly illustrates this trap of the mind. In a small village, a hunter devised a clever way to catch monkeys. He would take a coconut, cut a small hole in it, just big enough for a monkey's open hand to slide through, and then he would place a handful of rice inside and chain the coconut to a tree. A monkey, driven by its curiosity and greed, would come along, smell the rice, and slide its hand into the coconut. It would grasp the rice, making a fist, but now, with its fist clenched, its hand was too large to pull back out through the hole. The monkey would pull and shriek and struggle, trapped. But it was not the coconut or the chain that truly held it prisoner. It was its own clenched fist. The hunter could walk up calmly and capture the frantic animal. All the monkey ever had to do to be free was to let go of the rice. But its attachment, its desperate clinging to the prize, was so strong that it could not see this simple truth. We are that monkey. The coconut is our mind. And the rice is our own thoughts, our worries, our resentments, our precious plans, and our cherished stories about ourselves. We cling to them so tightly, believing them to be valuable, essential, a part of who we are. We refuse to unclench our mental fist, and so we remain trapped, pulling against a prison of our own making. Freedom is not found by breaking the coconut. It is found in the simple, graceful, and courageous act of opening the hand, of letting go. To recognize the monkey mind is the first step. To learn to watch it without being carried away by it is the practice. It is the beginning of finding the space between the thoughts, the silence that lies beneath the chatter. But now that we have seen this restless creature and understood its nature, a deeper question arises. What is the rice that it clings to so desperately? What is the current of the river that carries all these leaves of thought? To understand that, we must look directly at the very nature of the dissatisfaction that fuels this entire process. We must look at the source of the monkey's unending hunger. The restless energy of the monkey mind is not random. It is driven by a deep and powerful fuel, a current that runs beneath the surface of all our experiences. This current is a subtle but pervasive feeling of dissatisfaction, a sense of unease, a low-grade, constant stress. The ancient Pali word for this is dukkha. This word is often translated as suffering, but its meaning is far richer and more nuanced. It is not just about the grand tragedies of life, like death or disease. It is also the feeling that something is not quite right, the itch you can't scratch, the vague anxiety in the pit of your stomach, the persistent feeling that your life, your body, or you yourself are somehow incomplete or flawed. It is the background hum of discontent that the monkey mind feeds on, the very thing that keeps it swinging, searching for a permanent branch of satisfaction that it can never find. To understand dukkha, the Buddha offered a profound and clarifying teaching, one that is not a pessimistic judgment on life, but a deeply realistic diagnosis of the human condition. He taught that to be alive is to be subject to certain unavoidable pains. This is the first arrow. No matter how wealthy, powerful, or virtuous you are, you cannot avoid the first arrow. It comes in many forms. It is the physical pain of a stubbed toe, a chronic backache, or a serious illness. It is the emotional pain of being misunderstood, of being rejected by someone you love, of watching a friend suffer. It is the pain of loss, the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, the inevitable loss of loved ones. It is the pain of aging, of seeing your body change and weaken. These things are not your fault. They are not a punishment. They are simply part of the fabric of existence, woven into the contract of being a mortal, vulnerable human being. To spend your life trying to construct a fortress so perfect that no first arrows can ever touch you is an impossible, exhausting task. It is a life lived in constant fear of the inevitable. The true source of our deep, lasting suffering, the Buddha explained, does not come from this first arrow. It comes from the second. He told a story. Imagine a person walking through a forest, and suddenly they are shot by an arrow. There is a sharp, immediate, and undeniable pain. This is the first arrow. The wound is real. Now, what does this person do? Instead of simply tending to the wound, they fall to the ground and begin to lament. Why me, they cry. What have I done to deserve this? This is horrible. This is unfair. My whole day, my whole life is ruined by this. This should not be happening to me. All of these thoughts, this entire storm of resistance, resentment, anger, and self-pity is the second arrow. It is an arrow that we shoot at ourselves. The wound from the first arrow might be deep, but it is clean. The wound from the second arrow is poisoned. The suffering it creates is often 100 times greater, 100 times more enduring than the original pain. The first arrow wounds the body or the heart for a moment. The second arrow infects the mind for days, weeks, even years. The monkey mind is the master archer of the second arrow. It takes the raw data of a painful event and immediately begins to spin a story around it, a narrative in which we are the primary victim. Let's watch this happen in our own lives. You receive some critical feedback at work. The first arrow is the initial sting of embarrassment or disappointment. It is a momentary, unpleasant sensation. But then, the monkey mind grabs its bow. The second arrow is the obsessive replaying of the conversation in your head all weekend. The third arrow is the anger and resentment you build towards your colleague. The fourth is the story you tell yourself. I'm not good enough for this job. Everyone probably thinks I'm an imposter. The fifth is the anxiety you feel on Sunday night, dreading going back to the office. The original, clean pain of the first arrow is long gone, but you are now riddled with self-inflicted wounds, each one dripping with the poison of your own narrative. Or consider a relationship ending. The first arrow is the genuine, unavoidable grief and sadness of the loss. It is a necessary and healthy emotional response. But the second arrows are the thoughts of, I will be alone forever. I must be unlovable, or my life has no meaning without them. These stories create a layer of despair and hopelessness on top of the clean paint of grief, preventing the natural process of healing. We do this even with trivial things. You get stuck in traffic. The first arrow is the simple fact of being delayed. The second arrow is the fuming rage, the honking, the cursing of other drivers, the frantic catastrophizing about being late. You have taken a simple inconvenience and allowed your own reaction to turn it into a source of profound mental anguish. We are so accustomed to shooting these second arrows that we don't even realize we are doing it. We believe the suffering they cause is an inseparable part of the original event. We believe the story is the same as the reality. So how do we stop this cycle of self-inflicted pain? The answer is not to become a heartless stoic, numb to the world. It is not to pretend the first arrow doesn't hurt. In fact, it is the exact opposite. The path to avoiding the second arrow is to have the courage to fully experience the first. It is to learn to stay present with the clean, raw, unfiltered reality of pain, without adding the story. When the first arrow strikes, the practice is to pause, to breathe, to turn your attention inwards, and simply allow the sensation to be what it is. If it is grief, you allow the feeling of sadness to wash over you, without the narrative of, my life is over. If it is physical pain, you investigate the raw sensation. Is it hot? Is it sharp? Is it throbbing? Without the fearful story of, what if this never goes away? This is an act of profound bravery. It is often much easier to get lost in the familiar, dramatic storyline of anger and blame than it is to sit with the stark vulnerability of pure pain. But when you do, something remarkable happens. You discover that the clean pain of the first arrow is transient. Like all sensations, it arises, it stays for a while, and it passes away. It is bearable. It is the resistance to it, the story about it, the second arrow, that makes it feel permanent and unbearable. By wisely accepting the reality of the first arrow, by allowing it to be what it is, you give the wound the air it needs to heal. You stop the infection before it can begin. The pain of life is not optional. The first arrows will always fly, but the suffering, the dukkha, the deep dissatisfaction that colors so much of our existence, that is largely optional. It is the accumulated weight of all the second, third, and fourth arrows that we have shot into ourselves over a lifetime. It is the residue of our resistance to reality. Our freedom, then, lies not in changing the world so that it never hurts us, but in changing our own minds so that we stop hurting ourselves. This raises a crucial question. We see now that the monkey mind is the archer, and the second arrow is its weapon. But what is the poison that it dips the arrowhead in before firing? What gives the second arrow its venomous, lasting sting, transforming simple pain into profound suffering? The wisdom of this path points to three fundamental toxins of the mind, the very source of the anger, fear, and craving that fashion our arrows and keep us in chains. To truly find peace, we must look these poisons in the eye. The second arrow, the one that delivers our deepest suffering, is not fashioned from plain wood. Its tip is coated in a potent, fast-acting venom. This venom is not a single substance, but a compound of what Buddhist teachings call the three poisons. These are the fundamental toxins of the mind, the source code for the program of dissatisfaction that runs constantly in the background of our lives. They are greed, hatred, and ignorance. In ancient Buddhist art, they are depicted at the very hub of the wheel of life, the engine that drives the entire cycle of struggle and rebirth. They are shown as a rooster, a snake, and a pig, each biting the tail of the one before it, locked in a self-perpetuating vicious circle. To understand these poisons is to understand the very mechanism of our own unhappiness. The first poison is greed, often represented by the rooster, a creature known for its strutting pride and constant scratching for more. In this context, greed is much more than simple materialism. It is the deep, insatiable craving of the heart, the inner voice that whispers, I need more. This is not enough. It is a fundamental orientation of the mind that is constantly pulling things toward itself, seeking to possess, consume, and absorb. We see its most obvious form in our consumer culture, the endless desire for a new phone, a bigger house, a more fashionable wardrobe. But its roots go far deeper. We are greedy for pleasant sensations, the taste of a fine meal, the warmth of the sun, the thrill of a new romance. We chase these feelings, and when they inevitably fade, we feel a sense of lack and immediately begin searching for the next hit. Even more subtly, we are greedy for ideas and opinions. We cling to our beliefs, our political views, and our personal narratives with a white-knuckled grip. The need to be right is a powerful form of mental greed. We hoard evidence that supports our views and filter out anything that contradicts them. We are also deeply attached to our identity, to the story of who we are. We cling to the identity of being a successful professional, a devoted parent, a healthy person, or even a suffering artist. When life presents evidence to the contraria project fails, a child rebels, we get sick. Our clinging to that identity becomes the source of immense pain. This pulling energy, this constant wanting, is the rooster's endless agitated scratching. It is a state of perpetual hunger. And because everything in the world is by nature impermanent, it is a hunger that can never, ever be truly satisfied. The second poison is hatred or aversion, represented by the snake, a creature that strikes out with cold, defensive venom. If greed is the energy of pulling things toward you, hatred is the energy of violently pushing them away. It is the force of resistance. It encompasses the entire spectrum of negativity, from the mildest irritation to the most destructive rage. It is the anger you feel when someone cuts you off in traffic. It is the deep resentment you hold against someone who wronged you years ago, a poison you keep drinking yourself, hoping the other person will be harmed. It is the harsh judgment you levy against yourself for not being perfect. It is the cold contempt you might feel for those who hold different beliefs. Like greed, its manifestations can be very subtle. It is the slight annoyance at a slow internet connection. It is the impatience you feel when waiting in line. It is the anxiety that arises when you think about an unpleasant task you have to do. Anxiety is a form of aversion to a potential future. Every time you complain, you are feeding the snake. Every time you blame, you are feeding the snake. This energy of pushing away is deeply corrosive to our own peace. The Buddha famously said that holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. The snake's venom does not just harm its target. It first poisons the body and mind of the snake itself. It contracts the heart, hardens the mind, and isolates us from the world, creating a prison of us versus them. The third and most fundamental poison is ignorance, or delusion, represented by the pig. In many cultures, the pig is seen as a creature that roots around in the mud, content in its own filth, largely oblivious to the world around it. This is a powerful metaphor for this mental state. Ignorance, in this context, is not a lack of intelligence or a shortage of facts. It is a profound, primal blindness to the true nature of reality. It is the dark, muddy soil from which the plants of greed and hatred sprout. If you could clear away the mud of ignorance, the other two poisons would wither and die for lack of nutrients. What is it that we are ignorant of? We are ignorant of the truth of impermanence, fooling ourselves into thinking that things will last forever. We are ignorant of the truth of dukkha, deluding ourselves into believing that some external object, person, or achievement will finally deliver permanent happiness. And most importantly, we are ignorant of the truth of no self, operating under the powerful delusion that there is a solid, separate, continuous me at the center of our universe, who needs to be protected and promoted at all costs. This delusion is the linchpin. It is the pig that gives birth to the rooster and the snake. Because we are deluded into thinking a new car will bring us lasting happiness, ignoring its impermanence and the nature of dukkha, we give rise to greed, the desperate craving for the car, when we can't afford it, or when someone else gets a better one. Our delusion and greed give rise to hatred, envy, resentment, and frustration. We are deluded into thinking that an insult has harmed our solid, permanent self. This gives rise to hatred, the desire to push away the uncomfortable feeling and punish the offender, creating a story of righteous anger. We don't see that the real harm comes from our own reaction, the second arrow powered by our own aversion. Now we can see the vicious circle at the center of the wheel. The pig of ignorance, blind to reality, creates a distorted map of the world. Based on this faulty map, the rooster of greed identifies things it thinks will bring ultimate pleasure and begins to chase them. And the snake of hatred identifies things it thinks are a threat to its pleasure and tries to destroy them. The struggle between the rooster and the snake, this constant pulling and pushing, creates tremendous friction and suffering. This suffering, in turn, only serves to deepen the pig's delusion. Instead of seeing the whole faulty system as the problem, the deluded mind concludes, I just chose the wrong thing to be greedy for, or I just didn't push away the threat hard enough. And so the pig continues to churn in the mud, the rooster continues to scratch, and the snake continues to strike. They bite each other's tails, spinning the wheel of our lives around and around, powering the endless chatter of the monkey mind with their toxic, cyclical energy. These three poisons are the venom on the second arrow. They are the true source of its sting. The path to peace does not lie in pretending we don't have these poisons. They are a part of our shared human inheritance. The path lies in learning to see them with mindful awareness. When craving arises, instead of being swept away by it, we can learn to simply note, ah, greed is here. When anger begins to boil, we can learn to whisper to ourselves, aversion is present. In the clear light of non-judgmental awareness, the poisons begin to lose their power. You see them for what they are, impersonal, conditioned, mental events, not the core of who you are. This simple act of seeing is the beginning of the antidote. It is the first step in clearing the mud of ignorance. For all three of these poisons, greed, hatred, and delusion, ultimately orbit around and serve one central, powerful illusion: the persistent, convincing, yet ultimately hollow sense of me. To truly dismantle this engine of suffering, we must now turn our gaze directly upon the ghost in the machine, the ego itself. The three poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance do not operate in a vacuum. They are the loyal and ferocious guard dogs of a central master, the tireless servants of a king who rules the inner kingdom with an iron fist. This king is the ego. It is the persistent, pervasive, and profoundly convincing sense of I, me, and mine. We feel it as the center of our universe, the CEO in the head office of our mind, the thinker of our thoughts, and the feeler of our feelings. This sense of a solid, continuous self is the sun around which all our mental planets of desire, fear, and opinion revolve. But the wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a revolutionary perspective. What if this king is an imposter? What if the throne is empty? What if the ghost in the machine is, in fact, just a ghost? The primary function of this ego, this inner narrator, is to create a story. It takes the chaotic, unfiltered stream of life's events and weaves them into a coherent and continuous narrative called my life. This story is not an objective documentary. It is a highly biased, heavily edited piece of fiction starring one character, me. In this story, I am the hero of my triumphs, the victim of my tragedies. The ego is a relentless commentator, and its favorite subjects are comparison and judgment. It looks at the world and constantly asks, what's in it for me? Is this good for me or bad for me? It looks at others and asks, am I better than them? Am I worse than them? It is obsessed with its public image, perpetually worried about what others think, seeking validation and praise, while desperately avoiding criticism and shame. This constant storytelling, this inner monologue of self-interest, is the very sound of the ego's voice. From this endless narration, we build a fortress of identity. The ego is the architect of this fortress, and it uses whatever materials it can find. It uses the bricks of our past memories, our achievements, our wounds. We build walls from our accomplishments. I am the person who graduated from that university. We build walls from our pain. I am a survivor of a difficult childhood. We furnish this fortress with our possessions so that our car, our house, and our clothes become extensions of this fragile me. We decorate the walls with our roles: parent, spouse, professional, artist. We mistake these temporary job descriptions for our essential being. The strongest walls of all are made from our beliefs, our political affiliations, our philosophical convictions, our religious views. And once this fortress is built, the ego's entire project becomes one of defense. When someone challenges one of our deeply held beliefs, it doesn't feel like a discussion of ideas. It feels like a personal, physical attack on the very walls of our being. When we lose a job, the ego doesn't just register a change in circumstance. It experiences a catastrophic identity crisis, as if a whole wing of its fortress has crumbled. This is why we hold on to grudges so tightly. A grudge is a broken wall that the ego insists on remembering, pointing to the spot, and retelling the story of the attack over and over again. The ego believes that its survival depends on this fortress remaining intact, exactly as it was built. This reveals the ego's deepest, most primal fear: dissolution. It is terrified of its own non-existence. Not just physical death, but the death of its story. It is a character that is terrified of the book ending. This is why the ego is fundamentally conservative. It resists change at all costs. The past is its comfort zone, a land where the story is already written and the identity is secure. The present moment is a field of unnerving uncertainty, and the future is a terrifying abyss of the unknown. To the ego, letting go is a form of death. To forgive a grievance is to let a part of its victim identity die. To admit you were wrong is to let your identity as a right person die. To embrace a new way of being is to let the old, familiar self dissolve. The ego will fight tooth and nail to prevent this, for it senses, correctly, that in the spaciousness of change and the silence of the present moment, its own illusory nature might be exposed. The goal of this spiritual path, therefore, is not to launch a violent attack on this fortress. To try and kill the ego is just another, more subtle ego-driven project. The ego loves the drama of a good war, even one waged against itself. The person who proudly proclaims, "I am destroying my ego," is simply building a new, more elaborate identity as a spiritual warrior. The path is not one of destruction, but of illumination. It is about shining the light of gentle, persistent awareness onto this ghost. It's like waking in the night and seeing a terrifying monster in the corner of your room. Your heart pounds, you freeze in fear, but then you summon the courage to turn on a lamp. In the light, you see that the monster is just your coat hanging on the back of a chair. You don't need to attack the coat or destroy it. The fear vanishes instantly and effortlessly the moment you see it for what it truly is. The ego is that coat. The practice is to simply keep turning on the light. A famous Buddhist story perfectly illustrates this deconstruction. A Greek king in ancient India, Menander, known for his sharp intellect, decided to test the wisdom of a monk named Nagasena. The king arrived in his royal chariot and asked the monk his name. Nagasena replied that his brothers called him Nagasena, but it was only a designation, a name, because in the absolute sense, there was no permanent person or soul to be found. The king, a master of logic, was amused. "If there is no person," he argued, "then who wears these robes? Who eats and sleeps? Who is it that I am speaking to?" Nagasena remained calm. He turned the question back on the king. "Your Majesty, you said you arrived by chariot. Please, tell me, what is the chariot? Is it the wheels?" The king replied, "No, venerable sir." Nagasena continued, "Is it the axle, the frame, the reins, the yoke?" With each question, the king was forced to answer. "Number." Nagasena then smiled gently and said, "Then, your Majesty, I see no chariot. Is the word chariot just a sound? Where is the real chariot?" The king, trapped by his own logic, had to concede that the chariot was nothing more than a convenient name given to the collection of its parts, assembled in a particular way. It had no independent, essential existence apart from its components. Nagasena then delivered the final, brilliant point. "Just as chariot is a term for the collection of wheels and axle and frame," he said, "so Nagasena is a convenient term for the collection of the body, the feelings, the perceptions, the thoughts, and the consciousness. But when you examine these parts one by one with wisdom, you can find no permanent, unchanging Nagasena who owns them. There is only the process, the assembly, the coming together of these ever-changing components. This is the liberating insight. The me that we feel so intimately is just like the chariot. It is a useful name, a practical convention for navigating the world. But it is not a solid, unchanging thing. It is a verb pretending to be a noun. It is a temporary gathering of constantly shifting physical and mental processes. The story it tells about itself is compelling, but it is a work of fiction. When we realize this, truly realize it, the entire structure of our suffering begins to wobble. If there is no solid, fixed target, the second arrow has nowhere to land. If there is no fearful king on the throne, the poisons of greed and hatred lose their master and their purpose. This understanding of the ego as a temporary assembly of parts leads us directly to a foundational truth that the ego constantly tries to deny. To fully see through the ghost in the machine, we must first understand the ephemeral nature of the machine itself. We must confront the universal, inescapable law that governs all things, the profound truth of impermanence. The ghost in the machine, the ego, builds its fortress on what it believes to be solid ground. It seeks security, predictability, and permanence in a world that offers none. It is here, in this fundamental mismatch between the ego's deepest desire and reality's most basic law, that we find a vast source of our turmoil. This basic law, the first great seal of all existence in Buddhist thought, is known by the Pali word anicca. It means impermanence. It is the unavoidable, universal, and absolute truth that everything is in a constant state of flux. To build a life based on the idea of permanence is like trying to write your name on the surface of the water. The moment the letters are formed, they dissolve back into the whole. We spend our lives trying to carve statues in a river, and then we weep when they are washed away. Look closely, and you will see this truth everywhere. It is written into the grand cycles of the cosmos and the intimate details of our lives. The mountains that seem so solid and eternal are slowly but surely being ground into dust by wind and rain. Stars are born, burn brightly for billions of years, and then die in spectacular explosions. On our own planet, seasons turn, continents drift, and civilizations rise and fall. Nothing endures. This flow is the very pulse of the universe. Now bring your attention closer to home, to the vessel of your own body. You think of it as a single, solid thing, but it is a bustling city of trillions of cells, constantly dying and being replaced. The body you have today is not the same body you had 7 years ago, or even yesterday. It is a process, not an object. It is born, it grows, it matures, it inevitably declines, and it will die. This is not a morbid thought. It is a simple, observable fact. The ego resists this fact with all its might, spending fortunes on creams and potions to deny the lines on the face, clinging to the memory of a younger, stronger self. But this is like a single wave trying to resist the entire ocean. The tide of change is relentless. Even more immediate and turbulent is the impermanence of our own mind. Your thoughts are like clouds drifting across the sky. They appear from nowhere, take shape for a moment, and then vanish. Try to hold on to a single thought for even a minute, and watch how it wriggles free, replaced by another and another. Your emotional life is the very definition of flux. One moment you feel joy, the next, irritation. A wave of sadness can be followed by a moment of peace. We search for a permanent state called happiness, as if it were a destination we could arrive at and stay forever. But there is no such destination. Feelings are like the weather, they are conditions, not places. They are meant to move and change. To cling to happiness is to create the anxiety of losing it. To cling to sadness is to create despair. Anika teaches that there is no solid ground to stand on, not even within our own minds. The vast majority of our suffering, our dukkha, arises directly from this struggle. It is the friction caused by our minds resisting the natural flow of reality. We fall in love and want the exhilarating, breathless feeling of the beginning to last forever. We resist the natural evolution of a relationship into something quieter, deeper, and more complex. And in our resistance, we create pain. We achieve a long-sought goal and want to bask in the glory forever. But life moves on, new challenges arise, and we feel a sense of loss and failure, clinging to a moment that has already passed. We are time travelers of the mind, constantly leaving the present moment to either revel in the museum of the past or to build anxious blueprints for the future, all in an attempt to control and solidify a world that is fundamentally fluid. We suffer not because things change, but because we expect them to be permanent and are shocked and betrayed when they are not. This may sound like a dark and nihilistic philosophy, but it is the absolute opposite. When you truly and deeply accept the truth of impermanence, it is not a cause for despair, but a source of profound liberation and joy. It is the key to unlocking the preciousness of the present moment. If you know that the beautiful sunset will last only a few minutes, you watch it with your full attention. If you know that your children will not be young forever, you cherish the fleeting moments of their childhood with a tender heart. If you know that this very breath is a temporary gift, you can begin to feel the simple miracle of being alive. The acceptance of Anika frees you from the exhausting project of trying to control the uncontrollable. It allows you to relax, to soften, and to participate in the dance of life with grace and gratitude, rather than trying to choreograph every step. Furthermore, this truth is a powerful medicine in times of pain. When you are caught in the grip of intense anxiety, deep grief, or physical agony, the ego story is often that this state will last forever. This belief, this second arrow of perceived permanence, is what makes suffering unbearable. The wisdom of impermanence is a gentle hand on your shoulder, whispering the universal truth. This too shall pass. The storm of your anger is a weather pattern. It is not the sky itself. The heavy fog of depression will eventually lift. The sharp pain of loss will, in time, soften into a gentle ache. This knowledge does not magically erase the pain, but it changes your relationship to it. It introduces space, light, and hope. It allows you to endure the darkest nights of the soul with the quiet confidence that, like all nights, they will eventually give way to the dawn. There is no story that captures this lesson more beautifully than that of Kisa Gotami. She was a young woman whose first and only child had died. Consumed by a grief so powerful it bordered on madness, she refused to accept his death. She clutched his small, lifeless body to her chest and wandered from house to house, desperately searching for a medicine that could revive him. Some people mocked her, others pitied her, until one person suggested she go see the Buddha. She ran to him, laid her child at his feet, and begged for the miracle medicine. The Buddha looked at her not with judgment, but with infinite compassion. He did not tell her the blunt truth she was not ready to hear. Instead, he gave her a task. There is only one medicine that can help, he said. Go into the village and bring me back a single mustard seed, but it must come from a house where no one and no child, no spouse, No parent, no Cervantes ever died. Filled with a frantic hope, Kisagotami began her quest. She went to the first house. "Of course, we have mustard seeds," the woman there said. "But my father died here last year." She went to the next house. "Here is a seed," the man offered, "but do not remind me of the loss of my wife." She went from door to door, and the story was the same everywhere. Everyone had mustard seeds, but every family had been touched by death. The living, she slowly realized, were few, but the dead were many. Her frantic, personal, isolating grief began to melt into the vast, shared ocean of human sorrow. She saw that loss was not a special curse visited upon her, but the universal inheritance of all beings. With this profound realization, she returned to the Buddha, not with the mustard seed, but with a quiet understanding. She had found the medicine, not for her son, but for herself. She had learned the unavoidable truth of anicca. To understand impermanence is to begin to align yourself with reality. It is to learn how to surf the waves of life instead of trying to command the ocean. But this deep understanding of the constant flux of all things naturally leads to another, even more profound question. If everything is changing from moment to moment, my body, my thoughts, my feelings, then who or what is the I that is witnessing all this change? If the river is constantly flowing, is there a solid, unchanging self standing on the riverbank, watching it all go by? Or is the observer also just a part of the stream? To answer this, we must delve into the most radical and liberating teaching of all, the wisdom that points directly to the heart of freedom, the wisdom of no self. The trail of our investigation has led us from the chattering monkey mind to the poisoned second arrow that causes our suffering. We've seen that the poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance all serve a phantom king, the ego. We then expose that this ego itself is built on shifting sands, for everything in existence is governed by the law of impermanence, of anicca. This relentless flow of change leads us now to the deepest and most challenging question of all. If everything is changing, including my body, my feelings, and my thoughts, then who, exactly, is the one experiencing this change? If the house is constantly being renovated, is there a permanent owner living inside? The answer to this question is the key that unlocks the door to profound freedom. It is the wisdom of anatta, or no self. This teaching is perhaps the most radical and counterintuitive in all of Buddhist thought, and it cuts to the very heart of our delusion. From the moment we are born, we develop a powerful, instinctual sense of being a separate, solid, continuous self. We feel like a pilot flying the aircraft of our body, a thinker behind our thoughts. This feeling is so strong, so constant, that we never think to question it. The teaching of anatta asks us to do just that. It suggests that if we search for this separate, continuous self, we will not be able to find it. It proposes that the house is full of life and activity, but there is no single, unchanging occupant. The Buddha was not a philosopher who simply declared this to be true. He was a spiritual scientist who invited us to investigate for ourselves. He broke down our experience of being a person into 5 distinct categories, known as the 5 aggregates or skandhas. He invited us to look through this entire bundle of what we call self and see if we could find anything permanent and independent to cling to. Let's begin this search. The first aggregate is form. This is your physical body, your bones, blood, organs, and skin. Is this body your true self? We have already seen that it is impermanent. It is constantly changing, aging, getting sick. If you were to lose a limb in an accident, would you be less of a you? Of course not. The body is a temporary vessel, a biological process. It cannot be the permanent self we feel ourselves to be. The second aggregate is feeling. This refers to the raw sensations that arise in every moment, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You taste something delicious, that's a pleasant feeling. You hear a loud, jarring noise, that's an unpleasant feeling. You feel the temperature of the air on your skin, that might be a neutral feeling. Are you your feelings? If you are your happiness, what happens to you when sadness inevitably arises? Feelings are like the weather, constantly shifting and utterly dependent on external and internal conditions. They are far too fleeting to be a stable self. The third aggregate is perception. This is the faculty of the mind that recognizes, identifies, and labels. It sees a shape and color and says, "That is a red car." It experiences a sensation and says, "That is sadness." It is the process of making sense of raw data, but our perceptions are conditioned by our culture, our language, our past experiences. They are not a pure reflection of reality. They are interpretations, and they are constantly changing. This labeling process cannot be the core of who we are. The fourth aggregate is perhaps what we most identify with: mental formations. This is a broad category that includes all of our thoughts, opinions, beliefs, moods, intentions, biases, and habits. It is the voice of the monkey mind, the inner narrator, the planner, the worrier, the judge. But are you your thoughts? Which ones? The angry thought you had yesterday? The loving thought you had this morning? The thought about what to have for dinner? Your thoughts are a chaotic and often contradictory torrent. To identify with them is to build your house on a whirlwind. There is no solid self to be found in this mental chatter. The fifth and final aggregate is consciousness. This is the fundamental capacity for awareness itself, the light that allows form, feeling, perception, and thought to be known. One might think, aha, this must be the soul, the true self. But the Buddha asked us to look even closer. He pointed out that consciousness is not one single, monolithic thing. It is always a consciousness of something. There is seeing consciousness, which arises when an eye meets a form. There is hearing consciousness, which arises when an ear meets a sound. There is thinking consciousness, which arises when the mind meets a thought. It is not a separate entity floating around. It arises dependently, moment by moment. It, too, is a process, not a thing. After this exhaustive search through every component of our being, we are left with a startling conclusion. We have looked in every room of the house, and we cannot find a permanent resident. The self we have been searching for is not there. What we call a self is simply the convenient name we give to the dynamic, interdependent, and constantly changing dance of these 5 processes. To make this less abstract, imagine a river. You can stand on the bank and give it a name, like the Mississippi or the Amazon. The name stays the same, and the river seems to be a single, continuous thing. But the water that makes up the river is never the same from one moment to the next. It is in constant flow. The river is a pattern, a process of movement, not a static object. The teaching of Anatta says that you are exactly like that river. There is a continuity of habit, memory, and conditioning, which gives the impression of a solid self. But there is no unchanging essence, no single drop of water that is the real you that has been there since the beginning. The self is not a noun, it is a verb. It is a process of flowing, not a static entity that is watching the flow. Understanding this is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is the key to unraveling our suffering. As long as we believe in a solid, separate self, we are compelled to spend our lives defending and promoting it. When we fail at a task, the ego takes it personally. I am a failure. The shame can be crushing. When we succeed, the ego puffs up with pride. I am a success. This sets us up for fear of future failure. With the insight of Anatta, success and failure are seen simply as the result of a confluence of conditions. The personal sting is removed. When someone criticizes you, they are not attacking an eternal soul. They are reacting to a temporary collection of actions and thoughts. The second arrow has no solid target to hit. Most of our anxiety is the ego worrying about what will happen to me in the future. When this me is seen as a fluid process, the frantic need to control its destiny softens, and we can rest more easily in the unfolding of life. Most profoundly, seeing through the illusion of our own separate self utterly transforms our relationship with others. As long as there is a solid me, there must be a solid you. This creates the fundamental delusion of separation, the deep chasm of us versus them. That is the root of all conflict, judgment, and indifference. But when you look deeply and see that you are a selfless, flowing process of the 5 aggregates, you can look at another person and see the very same thing. You see another river, another dynamic process of thoughts, feelings, and sensations, driven by similar hopes and fears. The walls of separation become transparent. Their suffering is no longer separate from your suffering. Their joy is no longer separate from your joy. Compassion is no longer a moral duty you have to force yourself to feel. It becomes the natural, spontaneous response to seeing reality clearly. It is the simple recognition of our shared being. This vision of ourselves and others as flowing, selfless processes raises a final, crucial question. If there are no solid, independent things, how does anything hold together? If there is no single self pulling the strings, why isn't the world just a chaotic, random soup of disconnected events? The answer lies in one of the most elegant teachings of the Buddha, one that reveals the invisible threads that weave the entire universe into a single, intricate, and breathtaking tapestry. This is the law of dependent origination, the great web of interconnection. Having seen that all things are impermanent, and that there is no solid, separate self to be found within our own being, we are left standing before a profound mystery. If reality is not composed of solid, independent things, then what holds it all together? If there is no permanent pilot in the cockpit, Why is the world not just a chaotic, meaningless storm of random events? The answer to this is perhaps the most elegant and essential teaching of the Buddha, the master key that unlocks the other two. It is the law of dependent origination, or paticca samuppada. It is the realization that while things are empty of a separate self, they are full of everything else. It is the great web of interconnection. The principle of dependent origination can be stated very simply. This is because that is. This is not because that is not. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. This is not a mystical pronouncement, but a precise description of the nature of causality. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything in the entire cosmos arises in dependence upon other factors. It is the universe's fundamental operating system. This understanding provides a perfect middle way between the two philosophical extremes that trap the human mind. The first is the belief in eternalism, the idea that things, including our own soul, have a permanent, unchanging, independent essence. The second is the belief in nihilism, the idea that nothing matters, that life is random, and that our actions have no real consequences. Dependent origination reveals a third possibility, that things are not random, but they also have no permanent, independent essence. They exist only in relationship. Let us make this tangible. Look at a single flower. Our ordinary mind sees it as a distinct object. But if we look with the eyes of dependent origination, we see that the flower cannot exist by itself. For the flower to be, it needs the presence of all the non-flower elements. It needs the sun, without which it could not grow. It needs the clouds and the rain to provide water. It needs the soil and its nutrients. It needs the bee to pollinate it and the gardener to plant the seed. It needs the entire history of the cosmos to have evolved to a point where flowers are even possible. If you remove the sun, the soil, or the rain from the flower ceases to be. The flower is, in this sense, empty of a separate, independent self, but it is completely full of the entire universe. Consider the simple sheet of paper in front of you. Where is it from? You see the tree it came from, but you must also see the sun and rain that nourish the tree. You must see the logger who cut it down, and you must see the bread that the logger ate for breakfast, which means you must see the wheat, the farmer, and the baker. You must see the logger's parents and all their ancestors. You see the factory that turned the wood to pulp, the engineer who designed the machinery, the truck that transported the paper. If you were to return any one of these elements to its source, give the sunlight back to the sun, the water back to the clouds, the logger's life back to his parents, the sheet of paper could not exist. It is here, now, only because everything else in the universe is also here, now. This is not poetry, it is plain reality. The same is true for what we call ourself. You did not spring into existence from nothing. You exist because of your parents and their parents, stretching back through an unbroken chain of life. You exist because of the food you have eaten, the water you have drunk, the air you are breathing in this very moment. You are shaped by the language you speak, the ideas you have learned, the culture that has surrounded you. Take away all of these so-called non-you elements, and the you that you believe to be so solid and independent simply dissolves. This profound law of cause and effect has an intimate, personal dimension. This is the true meaning of karma. Karma is not a cosmic system of reward and punishment meted out by an external judge. Karma is simply dependent origination in action, applied to our own intentions. Every thought, word, and deed is a cause that ripples out to create countless effects. An angry thought arises in the mind. That is a cause. It creates an immediate effect, a feeling of tension in the body, a release of stress hormones. It also creates a future effect. It strengthens the mental habit of anger, making it slightly more likely to arise again. A kind word spoken to a stranger is a cause. It might lift their spirits, which is an effect. They may then go home and be kinder to their family, creating another ripple of effects that you will never see. Our smallest, most private mental actions are seeds that we plant in our own mind and in the world. This understanding cultivates a deep and empowering sense of responsibility. We are not merely passive leaves blown about by the winds of fate. We are active co-creators of our reality in every moment. To convey the beauty of this interconnected reality, Buddhist teachings use the breathtaking metaphor of Indra's net. Imagine a vast, cosmic net that stretches out to infinity in all directions. At every single point where the threads of the net cross, there hangs a single, perfectly clear, and multifaceted jewel. Because the net is infinite, the number of jewels is infinite. The magical property of this net lies in the fact that every jewel reflects all the other jewels. If you look closely into the surface of any one jewel, you will see the shimmering reflections of every other jewel in the entire web. And within each of those reflections, you will find the reflection of all the other jewels, creating an infinite cascade of interreflection. Each jewel represents a single being, a single event, a single atom. Each one is distinct and unique, yet its entire existence is defined by its reflection of all the others. It has no intrinsic, independent identity. Its being is a function of the whole. When a single jewel glows a little brighter, that light is instantly shared and reflected by every other jewel in the net. When one jewel is tarnished, that dullness is reflected across the entire web. This is our reality. The profound suffering of loneliness and isolation that marks so much of modern life is born from the delusion that we are a single, disconnected jewel rattling around in a dark box. We feel separate from each other, from nature, from the universe. We feel we must struggle and compete for our own survival. The wisdom of Indra's net shows us that this feeling of separation is a profound illusion. You are not, and have never been, alone. Your every breath is an exchange with the trees. Your life is sustained by a web of human and natural activity that spans the entire globe. You are a single, radiant jewel in this infinite net, and your existence is what makes the reflection in every other jewel complete. You are held, sustained, and defined by the whole. You belong. The three great truths of this path are now revealed as different facets of a single, brilliant diamond. Because all things are selfless, empty of a solid, independent core, anatta, and because they are constantly changing and in flux, anicca, they must therefore exist in a state of radical interconnection and mutual dependence, padikasamuppada. Nothing is separate. Everything touches everything else. Seeing the world this way is a profound, life-altering shift in perspective. It dissolves fear and isolation, replacing it with a sense of responsibility and belonging. But how do we move from merely understanding this idea to truly experiencing it in our bones? How do we train our minds and hearts to see the shimmering net instead of just our own isolated reflection? This is where the path moves from philosophy to practice, from view to action. The first and most essential tool for this training is the art of paying close attention, the simple yet revolutionary practice of mindfulness. We have journeyed through the profound philosophical landscape of the Buddhist path, uncovering the nature of our restless minds, the mechanics of our suffering, and the core truths of reality, that all things are impermanent, selfless, and radically interconnected. This new map of reality is liberating, but a map is not the territory. It is not enough to simply understand these concepts intellectually. The crucial question is, how do we learn to experience this reality directly? How do we train ourselves to see the shimmering, interconnected web of existence instead of the isolated, anxious ego? The bridge between the view and the reality, between theory and lived experience, is the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness, or sati in the ancient Pali language, is not an exotic, mystical state reserved for monks in mountain monasteries. It is a fundamental human capacity, a natural ability that has, for most of us, been left dormant and untrained. In its simplest form, mindfulness is the art of arrival. We spend the vast majority of our lives lost in thought, mentally rehearsing the past or planning the future. We are never truly where we are. Mindfulness is the gentle, intentional act of arriving in the present moment, the only place where life is actually happening. The most widely used definition provides a complete set of instructions. Mindfulness is paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Let us break that down. Paying attention. This is the basic action. It is the conscious directing of your awareness. Instead of letting the monkey mind drag the spotlight of your attention from one random thought to another, you decide where it will be placed. On purpose. This is the element of intention. You are not falling into the present moment by accident. You are choosing to be here. It is a deliberate and gentle act of will. In the present moment, this is the destination. Not yesterday's regrets, not tomorrow's anxieties, but the raw, unfiltered reality of this very moment, as it is. And finally, the most important and often most challenging component, non-judgmentally. This is the quality, the flavor of the attention you bring. It is an attitude of kindness, curiosity, and acceptance toward whatever arises in your experience. It means dropping the inner critic's relentless commentary of good, bad, right, wrong, should, or shouldn't. When a feeling of anxiety arises, instead of judging yourself for being anxious, you simply acknowledge its presence with a neutral curiosity. Ah, this is what anxiety feels like. This non-judgmental quality is the secret ingredient that transforms simple attention into a healing balm. It is crucial to understand what mindfulness is not. It is not about stopping your thoughts or trying to force your mind to be empty. This is the single greatest misconception and the source of immense frustration for those new to the practice. You cannot win a war against your own mind. The goal is not an empty mind, but a known mind. The goal is to change your relationship with your thoughts. Imagine you are standing on the platform of a train station. The thoughts are the trains. Before, you were unconsciously jumping onto every train that arrived, being carried away to wherever it was going. Mindfulness is the practice of staying on the platform and simply watching the trains come and go. You notice them. You might even read the destination sign on the side, but you don't have to get on. You realize that you are not the trains. You are the one watching them. You are the platform, the spacious awareness in which the thoughts appear. Most of us live our lives on a kind of autopilot, in a state of being lost in thought. Think of driving a familiar route. Have you ever arrived at your destination and realized you have almost no memory of the journey itself? Your body was performing the complex task of driving, but your mind was elsewhere, reliving a conversation, planning your evening, worrying about a work project. This is our default mode. We are not experiencing reality directly. We are experiencing our inner commentary about reality. Mindfulness is the deliberate shift from this autopilot mode to direct experience. It is the practice of dropping the endless narration and connecting with the primary text of life itself as it is delivered to you, moment by moment, through your five senses. The wonderful truth is that you do not need to set aside hours of your day or retreat to a special place to practice this. You can weave mindfulness into the very fabric of your daily life, transforming mundane activities into opportunities for presence and peace. Consider the simple act of eating. Most of our meals are eaten mindlessly, in front of a screen, shoveled down while our attention is a million miles away. We taste almost nothing. Try, just for one meal, to eat mindfully. Before you take a bite, look at the food. Notice the colors, the shapes, the textures. See the steam rising from it. Then, bring it to your nose and smell it. Acknowledge the miracle of what you are about to receive. As you take the first bite, chew slowly. Notice the explosion of flavors in your mouth. Notice the sensation of chewing, the texture of the food. Notice the intention to swallow. When you eat this way, a simple meal becomes a rich and deeply satisfying experience. You can taste the sun, the earth, and the rain in a single carrot. You connect with the entire web of life that brought this food to your plate. Or take a walk. We usually walk lost in thought, our bodies merely a vehicle to get our heads from point A to point B. Try a mindful walk. Feel the precise sensation of your feet touching the ground, the heel connecting, the weight rolling through the sole, the toes pushing off. You don't need to walk in slow motion. Simply bring your attention to the physical sensations of walking. Feel the air on your skin. Notice the trees, the sky, the sounds of your environment, not as things to be labeled and judged, but just as they are. This simple shift can transform a stressful commute into a calming meditation. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh spoke of mindful dishwashing. He said that if you are washing the dishes, you must be fully present with the act of washing the dishes. If you are rushing through them, thinking only of the cup of tea you will enjoy afterwards, then you are not truly alive during the time you are washing the dishes. You are sacrificing the present for the future. The chore becomes an obstacle, but the wisdom of mindfulness reveals that washing the dishes is life in that moment. To be fully present with the warmth of the water on your hands, the slipperiness of the soap, the form of each plate, is to be fully alive. The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to wash the dishes and to fully enjoy washing the dishes. Mindfulness is the foundational skill that allows us to experience the truths of impermanence, no self, and interconnection directly. It is the training that allows us to witness the monkey mind without getting caught in its drama. It is the gentle but firm practice of returning, again and again, to the home base of the present moment. Every mindful breath, every mindful step is a homecoming. This practice of weaving mindfulness into our daily lives is transformative. But to truly strengthen this mental muscle, to cultivate a deeper stability and insight, it is helpful to have a formal, dedicated time for practice. Just as an athlete has both game time and specific training sessions, we can benefit from the focused practice of sitting meditation. This is where we learn to simply be with the most fundamental, reliable, and ever-present anchor we have, the breath itself. While weaving mindfulness into the small moments of our day is a transformative practice, it is like stretching before a run. To build true mental and emotional fitness, it is helpful to engage in a more formal, dedicated training program. This is the role of sitting meditation. It is not an escape from the world, but a way of cultivating the inner resources of stability, clarity, and strength, so that we can engage with the world more wisely and compassionately. It is the time we set aside to go to the gymnasium for the mind. And in this gymnasium, our primary piece of equipment is simple, portable, and profoundly powerful: the breath itself. The practice is called anapanasati, which simply means mindfulness of breathing. Why the breath? Of all the possible things to place our attention on, why this simple, repetitive, biological function? The ancient masters of this path chose the breath as the primary anchor for attention for several brilliant reasons. First, it is always with you. From the moment of your birth to the moment of your death, your breath is your constant companion. You do not need any special cushions, bells, or quiet rooms. You have your breath in the office, on a crowded bus, in a moment of crisis. Your anchor is always available. Second, the breath is always in the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past, nor can you breathe in the future. Each breath exists only in the here and now. Therefore, by resting your attention on the breath, you are automatically tethering your mind to the present moment, pulling it back from its excursions into memory and fantasy. Third, and perhaps most importantly, the breath is the bridge between the mind and the body. It is a unique process, both involuntary and voluntary. It is intimately connected to our emotional state. When you are frightened or angry, your breath becomes short, shallow, and rapid. When you are calm and relaxed, your breath becomes long, deep, and slow. The connection flows both ways. A turbulent mind creates a turbulent breath, but a calm breath can help create a calm mind. By simply observing the breath, we get a direct, real-time report on our inner state. By gently calming the breath, we can send a message of safety and peace back to our nervous system. Finally, the breath is neutral. Unlike our thoughts and emotions, which are often charged with drama and judgment, the breath is just a simple, physical sensation. It is a reliable, steady, and unadorned home base to which we can always return. So how do we practice? The beauty lies in its simplicity. First, you find a posture that embodies a sense of dignity and alertness. You can sit on a cushion on the floor, with your legs crossed in a way that is comfortable for you, or you can simply sit upright in a chair, with your feet flat on the floor. The key is to keep your spine relatively straight, but not stiff like a mountain, grounded and majestic. Let your hands rest easily in your lap. You can gently close your eyes, or leave them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze toward the floor. Let your body be relaxed, but not slumped. The posture itself is a form of mindfulness, a way of telling your mind, I am here, I am present. Now, you gently bring the spotlight of your attention to the physical sensation of breathing. Let your body breathe all by itself. There is no need to control it or change it in any way. Your only task is to feel it. You might choose to rest your attention at the tip of the nostrils, feeling the subtle coolness of the air as it enters and the slight warmth as it leaves. Or you might prefer to feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest, or the expansion and contraction of your abdomen. Choose one of these anchor spots and let your attention rest there, as if it were a butterfly landing softly on a flower. You can silently note in as the breath comes in and out as the breath goes out. Simply be with the raw physical sensation of this one breath, and then the next. Inevitably, perhaps after only a few seconds, your mind will wander. This is not a sign of failure. It is not something you have done wrong. It is simply what minds do. It is in their nature to think. Your mind will wander to a sound it hears, to an itch on your skin, to a memory from your childhood, or to a plan for your evening. The moment you realize your mind has wandered is a golden moment. It is a moment of mindfulness. You have woken up from the dream of thought. The instruction for this moment is the very heart of the entire practice. It is simple, yet it is revolutionary. First, you don't judge yourself. You don't get frustrated or think, I'm terrible at this. You simply, gently, and without any criticism, acknowledge that the mind has been thinking. You might even silently label it, thinking or planning. Then, like a kind and patient parent, you gently but firmly guide your attention back to your chosen anchor, the sensation of the breath. There is a wonderful analogy for this process: training a puppy. Imagine you have a new puppy, and you are trying to teach it to stay on a small mat. You place the puppy on the mat and say, stay. It stays for 2 seconds, then sees a shoe and joyfully runs off to chew on it. What do? You don't scream at the puppy or punish it. That would only make it anxious and afraid of you. With loving patience, you walk over, gently pick up the puppy, and place it back on the mat. A minute later, it wanders off again. You gently bring it back again. You might have to do this 100 times in a single training session. Meditation is exactly like this. Your mind is the puppy, the breath is the mat. Each time your mind wanders off into thought, you gently, kindly, and patiently guide it back. This act of returning, over and over again, is the meditation. Each repetition is like a bicep curl for your brain, strengthening the muscle of attention. And just as importantly, it strengthens the muscle of self-compassion. Many people begin meditation with a set of expectations. They expect to feel blissful, to have profound insights, or to achieve a state of perfect, unbroken silence. This striving for a particular outcome is just another project of the ego. The true goal of this practice is not to produce a special state, but to become intimately familiar with whatever state is present. The goal is the process, not the product. Some days, your mind will be relatively calm, and you will be able to stay with the breath for longer periods. Other days, your mind will feel like a raging storm, a chaotic whirlwind of thought, and you will have to guide it back every other second. Both are perfect meditations. In fact, the bad meditations, the ones where you feel restless and have to return your attention 1,000 times, are often the ones where you are building the most strength. You are not practicing to feel good. You are practicing to get good at feeling. This formal practice is not an end in itself. It is a training ground. We sit in silence with our breath so that we can learn to be more present, calm, and aware in the noisy, complicated moments of our actual lives. The stability you cultivate on the cushion is the stability you will have when you are stuck in traffic. The patience you learn with your own wandering mind is the patience you can then offer to a difficult colleague or a crying child. You are not escaping from life. You are training for it. As we sit in this quiet, intimate way, we begin to notice not just the patterns of our thoughts, but also the emotional tone of our mind. We become acutely aware of the harsh inner critic, the subtle judgments, the background hum of anxiety. Simply observing this is a powerful act. But we can also go a step further. We can actively and intentionally cultivate a different quality of mind. We can water the seeds of warmth, kindness, and goodwill that also lie within us. Having learned to quiet the mind with the breath, we can now learn to soften the heart. This is the beautiful practice of loving kindness. Through the practice of mindfulness, we create a clear, stable space within the mind. We learn to sit on the riverbank and watch the thoughts and feelings float by without being swept away. Now, with this newfound clarity, we can ask a powerful question. What do we want to cultivate in this inner space? What seeds do we want to intentionally plant and water in the garden of our hearts? While mindfulness stills the mind, there is a corresponding practice that warms and softens the heart. It is the practice of metta, or loving kindness. This is the direct and powerful antidote to the second poison of hatred, aversion, and ill will. It is essential to first understand what metta is not. It is not the conditional, romantic, or sentimental love that is so often the subject of songs and poems. It is not a feeling of affection you have only for those who are nice to you or who meet your expectations. Metta is an unconditional, universal, and radiant goodwill. It is a simple, steady, and heartfelt wish for the well-being of others, offered freely and without any expectation of reward. It is the silent, sincere wish from the depths of your own heart. May you be happy, may you be well, may you be safe. This is not about waiting to feel a certain way. It is an active practice, a form of mental cultivation, bhavana, where we intentionally generate this warmth until it becomes a natural and abiding quality of our mind. The practice of cultivating loving kindness traditionally begins in the place where it is often most difficult, with ourselves. In a culture that so often mistakes self-criticism for a virtue, this first step can feel awkward, selfish, or even impossible. But it is the absolute foundation of the entire practice. You cannot pour clean water for others from a poisoned well. You cannot offer genuine warmth to the world if your own heart is a cold landscape of self-judgment and shame. Trying to do so is like trying to light another's candle when your own has no flame. To be a true friend to the world, you must first learn to be a friend to yourself. The practice is simple and direct, finding a quiet, dignified posture, just as in breath meditation. You gently and silently repeat a series of phrases directed toward your own being. You can use the traditional phrases or any words that resonate with you. Softly, you repeat, "May I be happy. May I be healthy in body and in mind. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I live with ease and well-being." As you repeat these phrases, you are not trying to force a feeling. You are simply planting seeds. You are offering yourself the same kindness and care you would offer to a beloved friend who is struggling. You are letting go of the inner critic, just for a few moments, and allowing a space for simple, unconditional self-acceptance to arise. This can be the most challenging and transformative part of the entire practice. Once you have established a small reservoir of this warmth for yourself, you then begin to expand the circle of loving kindness outwards in a series of stages. The next step is to bring to mind a benefactor or a dear friend, someone you love easily and without complication. It could be a mentor, a family member, a cherished petty one whose image naturally brings a smile to your face. You hold their image in your mind's eye, and you extend the exact same wishes to them. May you be happy, may you be well, may you be safe, may you live with ease. The purpose of this stage is to allow the feeling of metta to flow easily and effortlessly, to prime the pump of the heart. Next, you bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone you see regularly, but for whom you have no strong feelings, positive or negative. It could be the person who sells you your morning coffee, a colleague you barely know, or a neighbor you pass on the street. You hold their image in your mind, and, just as before, you offer them the same heartfelt wishes. May you be happy, may you be well, may you be safe. This stage is crucial. It begins to stretch the muscle of goodwill beyond the confines of your personal preferences. It challenges the mind's habit of dividing the world into people who matter to me and people who don't. It is an act of recognizing the shared humanity in someone you might otherwise ignore. Now comes the most advanced and heart-opening stage of the practice, offering loving kindness to a difficult person or even an enemy. It is wise to start with someone who is only mildly irritating, rather than the source of your deepest trauma. Bring this person to mind and do your best to extend the same wishes. This can be incredibly challenging. As you do this, feelings of anger, hurt, and resentment will almost certainly arise. The practice is not to deny these feelings, but to meet them with mindfulness and to gently return to the phrases of metta. It is critical to understand that this is not about condoning their harmful actions or forcing a superficial forgiveness. This practice is for your benefit. It is the act of dropping the hot coal of hatred that has been burning your own hand. Wishing for a difficult person to be happy is a radical act of wisdom, for you understand that a truly happy, peaceful, and content person does not cause harm to others. You are wishing for an end to the very suffering within them that is the cause of their harmful behavior. You are wishing for your own freedom from the prison of resentment. Finally, you expand the circle to encompass all beings without exception. You radiate the feeling of loving kindness outwards in every direction. First, to all those in your immediate vicinity, then to your city, your country. Then you extend it to all human beings on the planet, regardless of who they are or what they have done. You extend it further to all animals, all creatures that fly in the sky, walk on the land, or swim in the water. You extend it to all beings, seen and unseen, near and far, large and small. May all beings everywhere be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be safe. In this final stage, the last remaining walls of the ego dissolve. You connect with the profound truth of Indra's net, the reality that your well-being is inseparable from the well-being of all. The power of this practice is not merely a feel-good sentiment, it is a transformative force. The story of the Buddha and the raging elephant Nalagiri illustrates this perfectly. The Buddha's jealous cousin, Devadatta, in an attempt to assassinate him, got the fiercest elephant in the kingdom drunk and enraged, and unleashed it upon the narrow lane where the Buddha was walking. People screamed and fled in terror as the massive animal charged, intent on destruction. The Buddha's disciples begged him to run, but he stood his ground, perfectly calm. He looked at the tormented creature, and instead of fear, his heart filled with an immense and powerful wave of unconditional loving kindness. He saw not a monster, but a being lost in confusion and pain. The sheer force of the Buddha's metta radiated from him like a palpable energy. As the elephant reached him, its murderous rage simply dissolved. It slowed, knelt before him, and became utterly calm. Loving kindness is not weak or passive. It is a shield and a balm, a power that can disarm the most violent hatred, both in the world and within our own hearts. Metta, loving kindness, is the sincere wish for all beings to be happy. But what happens when we turn our attention not towards the aspiration for happiness, but towards the direct reality of suffering? What arises in the softened heart when we are confronted with the undeniable pain of the world and the pain we find within ourselves? This requires a related but distinct quality, a quality that moves beyond simple goodwill and into a state of active, heartfelt care. This is the heart's response to suffering, the profound practice of compassion. If loving kindness, or metta, is the sincere wish for all beings to be happy, compassion, or karuna, is the heart's powerful response when it encounters the reality that they are not. It is the trembling of the heart in the face of suffering. The word itself comes from a root that means to quiver or to tremble. It is not a passive feeling of sadness, but an active, vibrant empathy that feels the pain of another and generates the unshakable intention to see that suffering relieved. While metta is like the gentle, warming light of the sun, karuna is like the fierce, protective love of a mother for her suffering child. It is the heart's non-negotiable no in the face of pain. It is crucial to distinguish true compassion from its more common counterfeits. The first is pity. Pity looks down from a position of superiority. It says, "Oh, you poor thing, how terrible your situation is compared to mine." Pity creates distance. It reinforces the separation between the helper and the helped. Compassion, in contrast, meets the other at eye level. It recognizes a shared humanity and says, "I am here with you in this. Your pain matters." The second counterfeit is empathic distress or overwhelm. This is when we become so consumed by the suffering of others that we are paralyzed by despair. We drown in the sorrow of the world and become useless to everyone, including ourselves. True compassion is not about drowning with someone. It is about having the strength, wisdom, and courage to stand firmly on the shore and throw them a rope. It is empowered, not helpless. Where does this strength come from? The capacity for genuine compassion is not a sentimental personality trait. It is the natural and logical outcome of seeing reality clearly. When you have looked deeply into the truth of no self, anatta, you realize that the hard, artificial boundary between my pain and your pain begins to dissolve. You see that I am a flowing process of thoughts and feelings, and you are a flowing process of thoughts and feelings. We are both subject to the same laws of existence, the same vulnerabilities to sickness, loss, and old age. In this shared vulnerability, there is no basis for arrogance or indifference. Furthermore, when you understand the truth of dependent origination, you see that we are all interconnected, like jewels in Indra's net. The suffering of any single being sends a tremor across the entire web. Their struggle is, in a very real and tangible way, our struggle. Their liberation is intertwined with our own. In this light, compassion is not a moralistic should, something we do to be a good person. It is the most intelligent and pragmatic response to the reality of our interconnectedness. It is the ultimate antidote to the poisons of cruelty and indifference, which are always born from the delusion that we are separate. The practice of compassion, like all these arts of the heart, begins with mindfulness. The first and most profound act of compassion we can offer another human being is the gift of our full, non-distracted presence. In a world where everyone is staring at a screen, to offer someone your undivided attention, to truly listen, is a radical act of love. This means deep listening not just to the words being spoken, but to the feelings being expressed beneath the words. It means listening without formulating your reply, without judging their story, without immediately trying to fix their problem. It is listening with the sole intention of understanding what it is like to be them in that moment. To be truly seen and heard by another is one of the most healing experiences a person can have. For those wishing to train the heart more formally, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition offers a powerful visualization practice called tonglen, which means sending and taking. In this meditation, on the in-breath, you courageously breathe in the suffering of another person or group of people. You might visualize it as a dark, heavy smoke that you draw into your heart. On the out-breath, you send them whatever would bring them relief, peace, clarity, health, or joy. You might visualize this as a bright, healing light that radiates from your heart to theirs. This is not about magically taking on their pain. It is a profound training for the heart. It reverses the ego's lifelong habit of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. It trains you to move towards suffering with courage and an open heart, instead of recoiling in fear. It is a declaration that you are no longer afraid, that your heart is big enough to hold the pain of the world. And yet, we cannot even begin to hold the pain of the world if we are constantly at war with ourselves. Just as with loving kindness, the practice of compassion must begin at home, with the person you spend every moment of your life with, yourself. Most of us live with a harsh inner critic, a relentless voice that berates us for our failures, mocks our imperfections, and judges our every move. This inner tyrant is the primary archer of the second arrow, the source of so much of our anxiety and depression. Self-compassion is the practice of learning to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a dear friend who was suffering. It involves three key elements. First, mindfulness. simply acknowledging your pain without being consumed by it. Naming it, this is a moment of suffering. This is stress. This is pain. Second, recognizing our common humanity, reminding yourself that imperfection, failure, and difficulty are part of the shared human experience. You are not alone in your struggle. Everyone suffers. This realization breaks the spell of isolation. And third, offering yourself kindness, actively soothing and comforting yourself. You might put a hand on your heart and say, "May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion that I need." Self-compassion is not self-pity or self-indulgence. It is the bedrock of emotional resilience. It is what gives us the strength to get back up after we fall. And it is what fills our own well so that we have something to offer others. The great Bodhisattva of compassion, Avalokiteshvara, embodies this immense capacity of the heart. The legends say he made a vow to liberate every single being from suffering, and for countless ages, he worked tirelessly. But one day, he looked out over the world and saw that for every being he saved, another fell into misery. The sheer, unending scale of the world's pain overwhelmed him, and in a moment of profound despair, his head shattered into 1,000 pieces. The Buddha Amitabha, seeing his noble intention and his unbearable sorrow, came to his aid and reassembled him. But instead of one head, he gave him 1,000 heads, the better to see and hear the cries of the suffering world. And he gave him 1,000 arms, the better to reach out and help. In the palm of each hand was an eye of wisdom, signifying that true compassion is never blind. It is always guided by a clear understanding of reality. This story teaches us that the heart can break in the face of suffering, and in the very act of breaking, it can open up to become boundless. Compassion, then, is the active expression of our interconnectedness. It is the trembling of the heart that leads to the helping hand. It begins with the courage to face our own pain with kindness, and it radiates outward to embrace the entire web of life. These inner practices of mindfulness, loving kindness, and compassion are the engine of our transformation. They change the very landscape of our minds and hearts. But this inner change is not meant to remain a secret. It must find its voice and its expression in the world. And one of the first and most powerful ways this inner transformation manifests externally is through the way we communicate, through the noble practice of right speech. The deep inner work of cultivating mindfulness, loving kindness, and compassion is the engine of our spiritual transformation. It changes the very texture of our being, softening our hearts and clarifying our minds. But this profound inner shift is not meant to remain a private, hidden secret. It must find its expression in the world. It must flow from the silent sanctuary of our inner life into the bustling marketplace of our relationships. The first, most immediate, and most powerful bridge between our inner state and our outer world is our speech. The words we choose are actions. They are a potent form of karma, capable of building connection or creating division, of healing deep wounds or inflicting them. The practice of bringing this same mindful, compassionate awareness to our communication is known as right speech. Right speech, or samaveka, is a core element of the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path, the blueprint for a liberated life. It is not a rigid list of commandments, but a deep and practical training in mindful communication. It is traditionally broken down into 4 key principles, 4 gates through which our words should pass before they are released into the world. The first gate is abstaining from false speech. This is the commitment to truthfulness. On the surface, this means not telling deliberate lies, but it goes much deeper. It includes the subtle deceptions we engage in to protect our ego, the exaggerations we use to make our stories more impressive, the half-truths we tell to avoid inconvenience, and the so-called white lies that often serve ourselves more than others. To practice this aspect of right speech is to cultivate a radical integrity. It means that others can trust our words, and just as importantly, we can trust ourselves. Living truthfully frees up the immense mental energy that is required to maintain a web of fabrications, creating a mind that is simple, clear, and at peace. The second gate is abstaining from divisive speech. This is speech that is intended to create discord, to set one person or group against another. It is the act of carrying tales, of speaking ill of someone behind their back, of spreading rumors, of using language that fosters hatred and tribalism. The practice here is to use our words as a force for harmony. It is to speak in ways that build bridges, not walls. When we hear gossip, we can choose not to pass it on. When we are in a conflict, we can speak in a way that seeks to understand rather than to win. It is the conscious refusal to participate in the us versus them narratives that poison so much of human interaction, and instead, to use our words to highlight our shared humanity. The third gate is abstaining from harsh speech. This is any form of verbal aggression, yelling, cursing, insults, cruel jokes, and sarcasm designed to wound. This is the sound of the poison of aversion being weaponized. It is speech that comes from a contracted, angry heart. The antidote is to cultivate gentle speech. This does not mean we become weak or that we can never speak a difficult truth. Sometimes, love requires us to be firm, but we can speak that truth with a foundation of kindness and a genuine intention not to cause needless harm. We can be clear without being cruel. We can be direct without being destructive. It is the practice of ensuring our words are a balm, not a blade. The fourth and final gate is abstaining from idle chatter. In our noisy, hyper-connected world, this can be the most challenging practice of all. This is the pointless gossip, the meaningless talk that just fills silence, the constant stream of commentary on trivial matters. It is speech that lacks purpose and serves only to dissipate our mental energy and distract us from the present moment. The practice here is about valuing both silence and intentionality. It is to ask ourselves, is what I am about to say truly useful or beneficial? This doesn't mean we must always be serious and can never enjoy a lighthearted conversation, but it does challenge the compulsive need to speak, the fear of silence. It invites us to discover the power and clarity that can be found in stillness. These four gates can be distilled into a simple, practical filter we can use in our daily lives. Before speaking, we can pause and ask ourselves three questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? If the answer to all three is yes, then we can speak with confidence. But if a statement is true, but not kind, or necessary, for example, a harsh and unsolicited criticism, then perhaps it is best left unsaid. If it is kind, but not true, like empty flattery, it lacks integrity. If it is true and kind, but not necessary, it might be idle chatter. This simple filter helps us to move from being reactive speakers, driven by habit and emotion, to being conscious communicators, guided by wisdom and compassion. The practice of right speech also includes its powerful counterpart, noble silence. This is not the awkward, uncomfortable silence of people who have nothing to say, nor is it the cold, punishing silence used as a weapon. Noble silence is a conscious and powerful choice. It is the wisdom to know when words would only add to the confusion. It is the strength to refrain from giving an immediate, reactive opinion. It is the compassionate act of creating a quiet, open space for another person to truly express themselves, and for us to listen more deeply. In a world drowning in noise, noble-minded silence is a sanctuary. There is a classic story that perfectly encapsulates the power of this practice. One day, a man approached the Buddha and began to verbally abuse him, hurling insults and accusations. The Buddha listened patiently and silently, with an air of complete calm, until the man had exhausted himself. Then, the Buddha asked him a simple question. "My friend," he said, "if you buy a gift for someone, and that person does not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man, taken aback, replied, "Well, it would belong to me, of course." The Buddha smiled gently. "Exactly so," he said. "You have offered me this gift of your anger and your insults. I do not accept it." This is the ultimate freedom of right speech. We cannot control the harsh, divisive, or false words that others may direct at us, but we have absolute power over whether or not we accept their gift. We do not have to internalize the poison. We do not have to take it personally. We can let the words land on a surface of mindful awareness and let them dissolve without a second arrow of reaction. Right speech, then, is mindfulness in action. It is the daily practice of aligning our words with our deepest values of truth, kindness, and harmony. It is a profound way of cleaning up our own corner of Indra's net, ensuring that the vibrations we send out into the world are ones that heal rather than harm. Our words are the first and most frequent way we touch the world, but they are intimately tied to our physical behaviors. Just as we learn to bring mindful intention to what we say, the path also calls us to bring this same conscious awareness to what we do. The journey continues its outward expression through the practice of right action. Our inner transformation, cultivated in the silence of meditation, finds its first voice in right speech. But the path does not stop there. It calls for a full embodiment of our wisdom and compassion, translating our inner state into our physical presence in the world. Our actions are the most tangible way we interact with the web of life. They are the waves we create, for good or for ill, that ripple out across Indra's net. The practice of consciously aligning our physical deeds with our deepest values of non-harming and kindness is known as right action, or samma kamanta. It is the practice of making our every move a testament to our awakening heart. Like right speech, right action is not a set of rigid, external rules to be followed out of fear of punishment. It is a training in mindfulness, a set of guidelines that flow naturally from a compassionate, and clear mind. Traditionally, it is expressed through three foundational precepts, three areas where we commit to cultivating skillfulness. The first pillar of right action is abstaining from taking life. At its most fundamental level, this is a commitment not to kill other human beings, but its spirit extends much further. It is a vow to cultivate a deep and abiding respect for all living things. It invites us to see the life force that animates us as the same life force that animates the animal, the insect, and the plant. This doesn't mean we can live without causing any harm at all. The very act of eating or walking involves some level of destruction, but it means we hold the intention to minimize the harm we cause. It is a conscious turning away from cruelty, violence, and carelessness, and a turning toward a gentle, protective, and reverent way of being in the world. It is about recognizing that every living creature desires to live and to be free from pain, just as we do. The second pillar is abstaining from taking what is not given. On the surface, this simply means not stealing. We do not take the physical property of others. But this principle invites a much deeper self-reflection. Are we taking credit for work that someone else has done? Are we using company time for personal affairs, thereby stealing from our employer? Are we engaging in business practices that exploit our customers or employees? Are we consuming more than our fair share of the world's resources? To abstain from taking what is not given is to cultivate a mind of honesty, fairness, and generosity. It is about building a foundation of trust in our relationships and in our community. It is the practice of respecting the efforts, the time, and the property of others, as we would wish our own to be respected. The third pillar is abstaining from sexual misconduct. In our modern context, this can be understood as a commitment to bringing mindfulness and compassion into our sexual lives. It is a vow to avoid any sexual expression that is rooted in causing harm, either to ourselves or to others. This means avoiding any action based on exploitation, coercion, deception, or manipulation. It is about ensuring that our sexuality is an expression of mutual respect, deep care, and clear consent, rather than an act of selfish gratification driven by the poison of greed. It calls us to be profoundly mindful of the emotional, psychological, and physical impact of our actions on our partners, and to conduct our intimate relationships with the same integrity we seek to bring to all other areas of our lives. These ancient principles have a powerful and direct relevance to the complex challenges of our modern world. Right action is not just about our individual, personal behaviors. It applies to our collective choices as a society. The principle of non-harming invites us to practice conscious consumerism. When we buy a product, we can ask ourselves, was this made in a way that harmed its workers? Was it produced in a way that despoiled the environment, harming countless ecosystems? Every purchase we make is a vote. We can choose to vote for systems that cause harm, or we can use our resources to support businesses that are aligned with our values of kindness and sustainability. Our relationship with the planet itself becomes a field for right action. When we understand our profound interconnection with the earth, we see that polluting our air and water, contributing to climate change, and destroying natural habitats are all forms of causing immense harm. Right action calls us to live more simply, to reduce our consumption, and to act as stewards of the earth, which is the foundation that supports all life. Furthermore, right action is as much about what we choose not to do as what we do. To consciously refrain from participating in a harmful system, to choose not to engage in an act of revenge, to restrain the impulse to lash out, these are all powerful, mindful actions. They require far more strength and clarity than simply acting on our conditioned impulses. This highlights the truth that these precepts are not about blindly obeying rules. They are the natural, skillful expression of a mind that understands impermanence, knows self, and interconnection. When you truly see that your well-being is tied to the well-being of all, the desire to cause harm naturally falls away. The principles of right action become less like external laws and more like an internal compass, guiding you toward creating benefit and reducing suffering in every situation. The story of the courtesan Ambapali beautifully illustrates this transformation. Ambapali was the most famous, wealthy, and desired woman in the city of Vaishali. Her magnificent mango grove was a celebrated place of sensual indulgence and worldly pleasure. She was the very embodiment of a life dedicated to the pursuit of gratification. When she heard that the Buddha was teaching nearby, she went to see him, and his words on the nature of reality awakened something profound within her. In an instant, her perspective shifted. Filled with a newfound clarity, she immediately invited the Buddha and all his monks for a meal the following day, an honor so great that the proud princes of the city tried to buy it from her for a fortune. She refused. After serving the meal, in an act of supreme generosity and wisdom, She stood before the Buddha and donated her entire precious mango grove to the community of monks and nuns to be used as a monastery. This was the ultimate expression of right action. She transformed a place dedicated to the fleeting pleasures of the senses into a place dedicated to finding lasting liberation from suffering. Her action was not born from guilt or shame about her past, but from a joyful and clear-seeing wisdom about what truly leads to peace. It was the natural, outward blossoming of a profound inner change. As we begin to align our speech and our actions with these principles of compassion and non-harming, we will inevitably discover our own inner resistance. Our old, deeply ingrained habits of mind or anger, our fear, our greed will not vanish overnight. We may make a firm commitment to right action, but then a wave of rage arises, and the impulse to lash out is overwhelming. We may commit to right speech, but a surge of anxiety makes us speak defensively. The path, therefore, must provide us with skillful means for working directly with these powerful inner storms. We must learn to meet our most difficult emotions, not with suppression or surrender, but with mindful, compassionate wisdom. As we commit to a life of right speech and right action, we are attempting to steer the ship of our life in a new, more wholesome direction. But we quickly discover that the inner ocean is not always calm. Deep currents of habit and powerful, unpredictable storms of emotion will inevitably arise, threatening to throw us off course. We may vow to speak kindly, but a sudden squall of anger blows through, and a harsh word escapes. We may commit to acting with generosity, but a wave of fear or insecurity washes over us, and we act from a place of scarcity. To truly walk this path, it is not enough to simply manage our external behavior. We must learn to skillfully navigate these inner storms. We must learn to work with our most difficult emotions. Our conventional approach to difficult emotions like anger, fear, grief, or jealousy is usually one of two extremes. The first is suppression. We are taught that these feelings are bad or negative, so we try to deny them, ignore them, or push them down into the basement of our consciousness. This is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes a tremendous amount of energy, and the moment our vigilance slips, the emotion erupts to the surface with even greater, uncontrolled force. The second extreme is uncontrolled expression. We identify completely with the emotion and become its puppet. We lose our temper, acting out the anger and spewing its venom onto others, or we are completely paralyzed by fear, allowing it to dictate our life choices. Both of these approaches only strengthen the negative habit and create more suffering for ourselves and others. The Buddhist path offers a middle way, a third option that is both courageous and compassionate. It is the way of mindful awareness. This path begins with a radical reframing. Our emotions are not our enemies. They are not character flaws or signs of weakness. They are natural, impersonal energies that arise in the mind and body. More than that, they are messengers. Anger is often a messenger carrying the news that a boundary has been violated or that it perceives an injustice. Fear is a messenger delivering an urgent warning about a potential threat. Grief is a messenger that speaks of a profound loss and the love that was connected to it. The practice is not to shoot the messenger. It is to learn how to receive its message with wisdom, without being hijacked by its frantic energy. The first practical tool for this is the simple act of naming. There is a world of difference between saying, "I am angry," and saying, "There is anger arising in me." The first statement is an equation. You have fused your entire identity with the temporary emotional state. You are the anger. There is no space, no freedom. The second statement creates an immediate separation. It turns the emotion from the subject of your identity into an object of your observation. You are the one who is aware of the anger. You are the container. It is the content. Simply labeling the emotion anger, anger, or fear, fear, in a soft, non-judgmental inner voice creates the crucial space needed for a wise response. Once we have created this space, we can do something truly radical. We can, as one teacher put it, invite our anger to tea. Imagine your anger as a visitor who has just knocked loudly on your door. Instead of ignoring the knock, suppression, or letting the visitor kick the door in and ransack your house, uncontrolled expression, you mindfully open the door. You say, "Ah, anger, I see you are there. I will not let you take over my house, but I will not turn you away. Please, come in, sit down, let me serve you some tea." You are not afraid of the guest. You are not hostile to it. You are simply acknowledging its presence. Serving the tea is the act of offering the emotion your calm, mindful attention. You get curious about it, not with intellectual analysis, but with embodied investigation. You ask it, "Where are you in my body right now?" And you listen for the answer in the language of pure sensation. You might feel a tightness in your jaw, a burning heat in your chest, a clenching in your stomach, a surge of energy in your arms. You simply observe these raw physical sensations without judgment. You are no longer lost in the story of the anger. You are present with the energy of the anger. You continue to sit with your guest, your anger, simply offering it your presence, allowing it to be felt until it has delivered its message and its energy begins to naturally dissipate. You trust in the law of impermanence. No guest, no matter how intense, stays forever. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh offers an even more tender image for this practice. Cradling your emotion like a mother cradles her crying baby. When a mother hears her baby cry, she does not yell at it or ignore it. She instinctively picks it up, holds it close, and rocks it gently. Her loving physical presence is the first and most important medicine. She may not know yet if the baby is hungry, tired, or in pain, but she knows her job is to hold the crying with tenderness. This is how we can learn to treat ourselves. When the baby of our anger, fear, or grief begins to cry within us, our mindfulness is the act of picking it up. We embrace the difficult feeling. We hold it with non-judgmental care. We can say to it, "Hello, my little anger. I am here for you. I will not abandon you. I will take care of you." This act of inner holding, of bringing a gentle and compassionate attention to our own pain, is profoundly healing. It soothes the raw energy of the emotion so that it does not have to become destructive. The ultimate goal of this practice is to realize that you are not the emotion. You are not the storm cloud. You are the sky. A storm may be dark, violent, and full of lightning, but the vast, open sky is not harmed or diminished by it. The sky has enough space to contain any and all weather patterns. In the same way, your awareness is vast and open enough to hold any emotional storm that passes through. The practice is to rest in your sky-like nature, allowing the clouds of emotion to come and to go without identifying with them. This is what true emotional freedom looks like. It is not the freedom from ever feeling anger or fear again. It is the freedom to feel any emotion fully, without being controlled by it. It is the ability to metabolize the raw energy of our feelings, learning their lessons without getting burned by their fire. It is a profound act of self-compassion and inner alchemy. As we learn to work skillfully with these inner storms, we find that the spiritual life is not only about navigating difficulty, it is also about discovering a deep and abiding joy, a contentment that is not dependent on external circumstances. Our culture teaches us to seek this joy in accumulation, in having more and doing more. The wisdom of this path, however, points in a radically different direction, toward the profound wealth that can be found in simplicity. As we learn to skillfully meet the inner storms of our difficult emotions, a space of calm and clarity begins to open within us. But the habits of the mind run deep. Our culture relentlessly teaches us that this inner space should be filled. It tells us that happiness, peace, and fulfillment are products to be acquired. It preaches a gospel of more money, more possessions, more status, more experiences. We are taught to believe that an empty space is a lack, a void that must be crammed with achievements and acquisitions to prove our worth. The wisdom of the Buddhist path offers a profoundly radical and liberating alternative. It suggests that true wealth is found not in accumulation, but in simplicity. It is the discovery of the immense richness of the empty bowl. To understand this, we must first distinguish between two very different experiences that our culture often confuses: pleasure and joy. Pleasure is dependent on external stimuli. It is the thrill of a new purchase, the taste of a delicious meal, the excitement of a vacation, the validation of a social media post. It is a temporary, sensory high, because it depends on something outside of ourselves, and because all things are impermanent, pleasure is always fleeting. The moment the stimulus is gone, the pleasure fades, often leaving behind a craving for the next hit. Pleasure is the fuel for the poison of greed, and it keeps us on a treadmill of constant seeking. Joy, on the other hand, is an internal state of being. The Pali word sukha points to this deeper sense of well-being, contentment, and peace that is not dependent on external conditions. It is not a noisy excitement, but a quiet, steady warmth in the heart. It is the peace that comes from wanting what you already have, rather than wanting what you don't. It is the natural state of a mind that is not at war with itself or with the world. While pleasure is sought without, joy is uncovered within. Our modern consumer society is an engine expertly designed to promote pleasure while promising joy, a trick that ensures the engine never stops running. The fundamental message of almost all advertising is one of lack. It tells you, you are not complete as you are flawed, your life is missing something. But this product, This experience, this status symbol, this will fix you. This will make you happy. It creates a feeling of dissatisfaction and then offers itself as the cure. This cycle locks us onto what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. We work hard to attain something we believe will finally bring us lasting happiness. When we get the new car or the bigger house, there is a brief spike of pleasure, but very quickly, we adapt. The new car just becomes the car. The bigger house becomes the new normal. The baseline of our desire has shifted, and now we need something even bigger and better to get the same thrill. We are running faster and faster, but emotionally, we remain in the same place, perpetually chasing a horizon that recedes as we approach it. The practice of simplicity is a conscious and courageous step off this treadmill. It is not about embracing poverty or depriving ourselves of basic comforts. It is about cultivating the profound wisdom of enoughness. It is a shift from the frantic question, "What do I need to get to be happy?" to the peaceful inquiry, "What do I truly need?" It is the discovery that our deepest needs are not for more things, but for more connection, more meaning, more peace, and more presence. Simplicity is the art of curating our lives, of intentionally choosing to keep only what serves our well-being and letting go of the rest. It is a declaration of freedom from the tyranny of wanting more. The image of the Buddhist monk with an alms bowl perfectly embodies this principle. The monk possesses almost nothing: a set of robes, a few personal items, and a simple bowl. Each morning they walk silently into the village. They do not beg, they do not ask, they do not choose. They simply stand, presenting their empty bowl as an opportunity for others to practice generosity. They receive whatever is offered with gratitude, whether it is a spoonful of plain rice or a variety of rich curries. They never know what their next meal will be. And in that not knowing, there is a profound trust and freedom. The monk's wealth is not found in what is in the bowl. Their wealth is the bowl itself, the emptiness, the simplicity it represents. They are not burdened by the need to own a kitchen, to shop for groceries, to plan menus, or to protect their possessions. Their mind is freed from the endless cycle of acquiring, maintaining, and worrying that consumes so much of our own mental energy. The empty bowl is a symbol of non-attachment, of radical dependence on the interconnected web of life, and of a heart that has found its contentment not in having, but in being. This connection between outer simplicity and inner peace is direct and powerful. Every object we own owns a piece of us. It occupies not just physical space in our homes, but mental space in our minds. We must work to acquire it. Then we must worry about maintaining it, ensuring it, and protecting it from being lost or broken. The more we accumulate, the more our mental landscape becomes a cluttered warehouse of anxieties and attachments. When we intentionally simplify our external world, when we clear out the clutter from our closets, our garages, and our schedules, we are simultaneously clearing out the clutter from our minds. With fewer distractions, the monkey mind has fewer branches to swing on. With less attachment to possessions, there is less fear of loss. With fewer things to manage and worry about, our precious energy is freed up for what truly matters: our relationships, our creativity, our inner work, our simple enjoyment of the present moment. Outer simplicity creates the spaciousness for inner clarity to arise. The path to a simpler life is a quiet rebellion against a culture of excess. It is the realization that we are being sold a promise of happiness that can never be fulfilled by anything outside of ourselves. True wealth is not having what you want, but deeply wanting and appreciating what you already have. The practice of simplicity is not about what you must give up. It is about the immense freedom, peace, and clarity that you stand to gain. The empty bowl is not a symbol of lack, but a symbol of being open and ready to receive the genuine gifts of life, which can never be bought or sold. This practice of simplifying our outer world by letting go of unnecessary possessions is a powerful physical expression of a much deeper inner art. We learn to let go of the clutter in our homes to find peace. Now, we must apply that same courageous principle to the clutter in our hearts and minds. We must learn the graceful, liberating, and essential art of letting go of the invisible burdens we carry every day. Our old stories, our bitter resentments, our rigid expectations, and our desperate need to be in control. Having simplified our outer world, we turn our attention inward, only to find a different kind of clutter. Here, in the vast, often unexplored landscape of the mind, we carry burdens far heavier than any physical possession. We carry the weight of old stories, the poison of past resentments, the crushing load of our expectations, and the exhausting strain of trying to control a world that is fundamentally uncontrollable. The practice of consciously and wisely setting down these invisible burdens is the graceful art of letting go. This is not an act of weakness, defeat, or indifference. It is an act of profound strength, wisdom, and radical self-compassion. To begin, we must first become aware of what we are carrying. Imagine you have been walking for miles with your fist clenched as tightly as possible. At first, you might not even notice the tension. It has become your normal state. But eventually, your hand begins to ache, your arm grows tired, and your energy is drained. The suffering comes not from an external enemy, but from your own grip. Our minds are like this. We clench them around our hurts, our beliefs, and our fears, and we wonder why we are so exhausted and in so much pain. Letting go is the simple, blissful, and liberating act of unclenching the fist. So, what are these burdens we clench so tightly? The first is our collection of old stories and identities. We define ourselves by the events of our past. We carry the story of a painful childhood, a past failure, or a significant loss, and we allow it to become the lens through which we see our entire present and future. I am a victim. I am the person who was betrayed. I am not good enough because of what happened back then. These stories may have once served a purpose, but over time, they become heavy, rigid cages that prevent us from growing and changing. Letting go of these stories is not about denying that the past happened. It is about releasing the need to let the past define who you are now. It is the freedom to write a new chapter today, unburdened by the weight of the previous ones. Perhaps the most toxic burden we carry is resentment. Holding a grudge against someone who has wronged us is like drinking a cup of poison and waiting for the other person to die. The bitterness, the anger, the endless replaying of the injustice, these things do not harm the other person. They corrode our own heart and poison our own peace. Letting go of resentment is not about condoning the other person's harmful actions or forcing yourself to reconcile with them. It is not about saying what they did was okay. It is about making a wise and compassionate choice for your own well-being. It is the recognition that carrying this hot coal is only burning you. Letting go of resentment is the ultimate act of emotional hygiene, a gift of freedom you give to yourself. We also carry the immense weight of our expectations of others. We walk around with a detailed, secret rulebook in our minds for how our partners, our children, our friends, and our colleagues should behave. When they inevitably deviate from our script as they always will, we feel disappointed, angry, and betrayed. We suffer because reality does not conform to our private manual. Letting go of these rigid expectations is not about lowering your standards or accepting poor treatment. It is about releasing the demand that others be anything other than who they are. It is about giving them the space to be human, and in doing so, giving yourself the gift of peace. It allows you to respond to people as they actually are, in the present moment, which opens the door to genuine connection rather than constant frustration. This is often confused with giving up or not caring, but this could not be further from the truth. Giving up is an act born of despair. It is a collapse, a declaration of defeat. It has a heavy, negative energy. Letting go is an act born of wisdom. It is a conscious release, a declaration of freedom. It has a light, liberating energy. When you let go of your need to control a situation, it doesn't mean you stop caring about the outcome. It means you care enough to do your best, to plant the best seeds you can, and then to trust the process of life, relinquishing your anxious grip on the results. You accept that you can control your own actions, but you cannot control the vast, interconnected web of causes and conditions that will ultimately shape the future. The most famous story illustrating this principle is that of the two monks and the woman at the river. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long walking journey. They came to a river where the ford was flooded with muddy water. A young woman in beautiful clothes stood there, distressed, as she did not want to ruin her dress to cross. Without hesitation, the senior monk walked over, picked her up, carried her across the churning water, and gently set her down on the other side. He then continued on his way. The junior monk was utterly scandalized. He was fuming. For hours, he walked behind his senior, his mind in turmoil. "We are monks," he thought. "We have taken vows not to touch a woman. This is a serious transgression. How could he be so undisciplined?" Finally, many miles down the road, unable to bear the weight of his judgment any longer, the junior monk burst out, "Brother, I cannot believe what you did back there. You broke our sacred vows. You touched that woman." The senior monk looked at him with a calm, compassionate gaze and replied, "Brother, I set that woman down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story powerfully reveals our own condition. We are all carrying people, arguments, injustices, and mistakes from our past. The event is long over, but we continue to carry the heavy mental representation of it, allowing it to poison our present moment. Letting go is the simple act of setting the woman down on the riverbank and walking on, free and unburdened. The practice of letting go is a continuous art. It begins with mindfulness, the simple recognition that you are, in fact, clenching your fist around something. Then, with gentle curiosity, you can investigate. What am I holding on to? Why am I carrying this? What is the cost of my peace right now? You can then use the breath as a tool for release. With each out-breath, you can visualize the tension, the story, the resentment flowing out of you, dissolving into space. It may take many breaths, it may take many attempts, but each act of letting go, no matter how small, is a step toward freedom. Letting go is the art of traveling lightly through life. It is the conscious choice to release the dead weight of the past so that we can have both hands free to embrace the gift of the present. It is the understanding that the clenched fist is a state of effort and struggle, while the open hand is a state of ease, trust, and receptivity. As we practice this profound art, releasing our grip on yesterday's stories and tomorrow's anxieties, a natural question arises. If we are not living in the past and not living in the future, where do we land? The answer is the only place life ever truly exists. The only place where peace can be found and joy can be experienced. We land, fully and completely, in our true home. The power and the beauty of the present moment. We have learned the graceful art of letting go, of setting down the heavy, invisible burdens of our past resentments and our future anxieties. As we release our frantic grip on what was and what might be, we find ourselves landing in a place that may feel at once both unfamiliar and deeply, profoundly familiar. This place is not a destination on a map. It is a moment in time. It is the only moment that has ever truly existed, and the only moment where life can be lived. It is your true home, the present moment. For most of our lives, we are homeless. We are wanderers in time, exiles from the now. The mind, by its very nature, loves to live in one of two illusory worlds. The first is the past. The past is a ghost town, populated only by the memories we choose to curate. It is a mental museum where we endlessly polish the trophies of our past successes to feed our ego, or a courthouse where we perpetually retry the cases of our old hurts, picking at the scabs of wounds that would otherwise heal. We go there seeking answers or escape, but we find only echoes. The past cannot be changed, relived, or fixed. To live there is to be haunted. The price we pay for inhabiting the past is regret. The second illusory world is the future. The future is a land of phantoms, a realm built entirely from the mists of our imagination. We travel there to construct elaborate blueprints for our happiness, or to draw up detailed contingency plans for our fears. It is the birthplace of all our anxiety. We exhaust ourselves preparing for 1,000 possible scenarios, most of which will never come to pass. We rehearse conversations, anticipate conflicts, and strain to control outcomes that are utterly beyond our control. To live in the future is to be in a constant state of becoming, never simply being. We are always on our way to somewhere else, and we miss the very life that is unfolding right under our feet. The price we pay for inhabiting the future is anxiety. Regret and anxiety are the ghosts that steal our life force, and they can only exist when we are not at home in the present. The practice of returning to the present moment is therefore the practice of homecoming. It is a simple yet profound act of remembering to show up for your own life. But how do we do this when the pull of the past and future is so strong? We use the one thing that can never time travel, our body. The mind can wander anywhere in the universe, but the body is always, unequivocally, here and now. The simplest way to return to the present is to connect with your physical senses. You can do this at any time. Right now, feel the soles of your feet on the floor. Notice the sensation of pressure, of texture, of temperature. This simple act is a powerful anchor that grounds you instantly in the present reality. From there, you can gently expand your awareness. What are 5 things you can see in this moment? Don't just name them, but really see them: the play of light on a surface, the specific shade of a color, the intricate pattern of wood grain. What are 4 things you can feel? The texture of your clothes against your skin, the solidity of the chair supporting you, the air moving in the room. What are 3 things you can hear? The distant hum of traffic, the sound of your own breathing, the ticking of a clock. What are 2 things you can smell? What is 1 thing you can taste? This simple sensory checklist pulls your mind out of the abstract world of thought and plants it firmly in the rich soil of direct experience. And always, there is the breath, your most faithful anchor, rising and falling in the eternal now, a constant invitation to come home. The ego will tell you that the present moment is boring. It craves the drama of past injustices and future triumphs. The present moment, with its simple, quiet reality, seems mundane by comparison. This is the greatest illusion of all. The present moment is not empty. It is overflowing with life. A life we miss when we are lost in thought. It is in the present moment that you can truly taste your coffee, truly feel the warmth of a hug, truly hear the music you are listening to, truly see the face of the person you are speaking with. Our entire lives are composed of a series of these ordinary present moments. To dismiss them as boring is to dismiss life itself, forever waiting for some grand, future event that we imagine will finally make us happy. The practice of presence is the discovery of the extraordinary within the ordinary. There is a powerful Zen story that illustrates this truth with breathtaking clarity. A man is being chased by a ferocious tiger. He runs as fast as he can until he reaches the edge of a cliff. With no other choice, he scrambles down the cliff face, grabbing onto a thick vine. As he hangs there, he looks up and sees the snarling tiger at the top. He looks down and sees another tiger, pacing on the ground below, waiting for him to fall. His predicament seems utterly hopeless. Then, to make matters worse, he sees two mice on white and one black scurry out of a crevice and begin to gnaw on the very vine he is clinging to. He understands that his time is now measured in moments, in this moment of absolute terror and impending doom, suspended between an unchangeable past and an impossible future. With time itself eating away at his life, he notices something. Growing from the cliff face, just within his reach, is a single, wild strawberry, glistening red and perfectly ripe. He reaches out his free hand, plucks the strawberry, and puts it in his mouth. The story ends with a single, simple sentence. It was so sweet. This is the power of the present moment. The man in the story is every one of us. We are all pursued by the past and confronted by an uncertain future, while time, the black and white mice of night and day, steadily consumes our lives. We can spend our precious moments fixated on the tigers of our regret and anxiety, or we can choose to fully inhabit the only reality we have. We can taste the strawberry. The strawberry is the simple, sensory reality of this moment, the feeling of this breath, the sound in this room, the aliveness of our own body. Even in the face of immense difficulty, the present moment offers a taste of reality so direct and so real that it transcends all fear. Your true home is not a place you must build or a destination you must travel to. It is always right here, patiently waiting for you to arrive. The past is a memory. It is not real. The future is an imagination. It is not real. Only this present moment is real. This is where you are alive. The practice of spirituality is, in many ways, simply the practice of showing up for your own life. And when you learn to live in this present moment, grounded in your true home, you discover a new way of meeting the world. You are less likely to be thrown off balance by life's unexpected collisions, for you learn to see them not as personal attacks, but with the spacious wisdom of the empty boat. We have learned the graceful art of letting go, of setting down the heavy, invisible burdens of our past resentments and our future anxieties. As we release our frantic grip on what was and what might be, we find ourselves landing in a place that may feel at once both unfamiliar and deeply, profoundly familiar. This place is not a destination on a map. It is a moment in time. It is the only moment that has ever truly existed, and the only moment where life can be lived. It is your true home, the present moment. For most of our lives, we are homeless. We are wanderers in time, exiles from the now. The mind, by its very nature, loves to live in one of two illusory worlds. The first is the past. The past is a ghost town, populated only by the memories we choose to curate. It is a mental museum where we endlessly polish the trophies of our past successes to feed our ego, or a courthouse where we perpetually retry the cases of our old hurts, picking at the scabs of wounds that would otherwise heal. We go there seeking answers or escape, but we find only echoes. The past cannot be changed, relived, or fixed. To live there is to be haunted. The price we pay for inhabiting the past is regret. The second illusory world is the future. The future is a land of phantoms, a realm built entirely from the mists of our imagination. We travel there to construct elaborate blueprints for our happiness or to draw up detailed contingency plans for our fears. It is the birthplace of all our anxiety. We exhaust ourselves preparing for 1,000 possible scenarios, most of which will never come to pass. We rehearse conversations, anticipate conflicts, and strain to control outcomes that are utterly beyond our control. To live in the future is to be in a constant state of becoming, never simply being. We are always on our way to somewhere else, and we miss the very life that is unfolding right under our feet. The price we pay for inhabiting the future is anxiety. Regret and anxiety are the ghosts that steal our life force. and they can only exist when we are not at home in the present. The practice of returning to the present moment is therefore the practice of homecoming. It is a simple, yet profound act of remembering to show up for your own life. But how do we do this when the pull of the past and future is so strong? We use the one thing that can never time travel, our body. The mind can wander anywhere in the universe, but the body is always, unequivocally, here and now. The simplest way to return to the present is to connect with your physical senses. You can do this at any time. Right now, feel the soles of your feet on the floor. Notice the sensation of pressure, of texture, of temperature. This simple act is a powerful anchor that grounds you instantly in the present reality. From there, you can gently expand your awareness. What are 5 things you can see in this moment? Don't just name them, but really see them: the play of light on a surface, the specific shade of a color, the intricate pattern of wood grain. What are 4 things you can feel? The texture of your clothes against your skin, the solidity of the chair supporting you, the air moving in the room. What are 3 things you can hear? The distant hum of traffic, the sound of your own breathing, the ticking of a clock. What are 2 things you can smell? What is 1 thing you can taste? This simple sensory checklist pulls your mind out of the abstract world of thought and plants it firmly in the rich soil of direct experience. And always, there is the breath, your most faithful anchor, rising and falling in the eternal now, a constant invitation to come home. The ego will tell you that the present moment is boring. It craves the drama of past injustices and future triumphs. The present moment, with its simple, quiet reality, seems mundane by comparison. This is the greatest illusion of all. The present moment is not empty, it is overflowing with life, a life we miss when we are lost in thought. It is in the present moment that you can truly taste your coffee, truly feel the warmth of a hug, truly hear the music you are listening to, truly see the face of the person you are speaking with. Our entire lives are composed of a series of these ordinary present moments. To dismiss them as boring is to dismiss life itself, forever waiting for some grand, future event that we imagine will finally make us happy. The practice of presence is the discovery of the extraordinary within the ordinary. There is a powerful Zen story that illustrates this truth with breathtaking clarity. A man is being chased by a ferocious tiger. He runs as fast as he can until he reaches the edge of a cliff. With no other choice, he scrambles down the cliff face, grabbing onto a thick vine. As he hangs there, he looks up and sees the snarling tiger at the top. He looks down and sees another tiger, pacing on the ground below, waiting for him to fall. His predicament seems utterly hopeless. Then, to make matters worse, he sees 2 mice, one white and one black, scurry out of a crevice and begin to gnaw on the very vine he is clinging to. He understands that his time is now measured in moments. In this moment of absolute terror and impending doom, suspended between an unchangeable past and an impossible future, with time itself eating away at his life, he notices something. Growing from the cliff face, just within his reach, is a single, wild strawberry, glistening red and perfectly ripe. He reaches out his free hand, plucks the strawberry, and puts it in his mouth. The story ends with a single, simple sentence. It was so sweet. This is the power of the present moment. The man in the story is every one of us. We are all pursued by the past and confronted by an uncertain future, while time, the black and white mice of night and day, steadily consumes our lives. We can spend our precious moments fixated on the tigers of our regret and anxiety, or we can choose to fully inhabit the only reality we have. We can taste the strawberry. The strawberry is the simple, sensory reality of this moment, the feeling of this breath, the sound in this room, the aliveness of our own body. Even in the face of immense difficulty, the present moment offers a taste of reality so direct and so real that it transcends all fear. Your true home is not a place you must build or a destination you must travel to. It is always right here, patiently waiting for you to arrive. The past is a memory. It is not real. The future is an imagination. It is not real. Only this present moment is real. This is where you are alive. The practice of spirituality is, in many ways, simply the practice of showing up for your own life. And when you learn to live in this present moment, grounded in your true home, you discover a new way of meeting the world. You are less likely to be thrown off balance by life's unexpected collisions, for you learn to see them not as personal attacks, but with the spacious wisdom of the empty boat. Having learned to float through life like an empty boat, meeting the world's collisions with a quiet equanimity, we notice a profound shift in our inner landscape, in the space that opens up when we are not constantly reacting. In the calm that follows the release of our personal dramas, we begin to sense a presence that was there all along, obscured by the noise. For our entire lives, we have been focused on the foreground of our experience, the incessant chatter of the monkey mind, the turbulent weather of our emotions. The path now invites us to make a final, pivotal turn in our attention away from the noise and toward the silence from which the noise arises. We are ready to listen for the sound of silence itself. This is perhaps the most subtle and profound shift in perspective on the entire journey. We begin with the assumption that peace is something we must create. We believe we need to stop our thoughts, eliminate our negative feelings, and construct a state of inner tranquility. The ultimate wisdom of this path reveals the opposite to be true. Peace is not something to be built, it is something to be discovered. It is not the absence of noise, but the presence of a vast, silent awareness that is already and always here, beneath the surface of all our experiences. The most powerful metaphor for this understanding is that of the sky and the clouds. Imagine your thoughts, emotions, memories, and physical sensations are the clouds. They are constantly appearing, changing shape, drifting across your awareness, and dissolving. Some clouds are light, white, and fluffy. These are our happy thoughts, our pleasant feelings. Other clouds are dark, heavy, and full of thunder. These are our anger, our fear, our grief. Because they are so dramatic and demand so much attention, we spend our lives fixated on the clouds. We believe we are the clouds. When a dark cloud of sadness appears, we think, I am sad. When a stormy cloud of anger passes through, we believe, I am an angry person. We are completely identified with the ever-changing weather of our minds. The practice of deep mindfulness is the realization that you are not the clouds, you are the sky. The sky is the vast, open, limitless expanse of awareness in which all the clouds of your experience take place. Consider the nature of the sky. It is not harmed by the most violent thunderstorm. It is not stained by the darkest cloud. It does not try to cling to the beautiful, wispy clouds of a perfect sunset. It allows them to dissolve without grasping. The sky is inherently peaceful, stable, and spacious. It allows all weather to come and go, to arise and pass away, without resistance. To realize your own sky-like nature is to find an unshakable refuge, a peace that is not dependent on whether the mental weather is sunny or stormy. The practice, then, is not to get rid of the clouds, but to shift your primary identification from the fleeting weather to the ever-present, boundless sky. How do we do this? We can begin by learning to listen in a new way. Take a moment right now. First, notice the obvious sounds around you: a voice, the hum of a machine, the distant sound of traffic. Now, shift your attention. Listen for the silence between the sounds. And now, listen even more deeply. Can you sense the vast, underlying field of silence out of which all sounds arise and into which they all dissolve? This silence is not a mere absence of sound. It is a presence. It is the background, the canvas upon which sound is painted. Learning to perceive this ever-present silence is a direct way to touch the stillness of your own awareness. We can apply the same principle to our thoughts. As you sit quietly, you can watch the stream of thoughts as they pass through your mind. Instead of getting caught in their content, see if you can notice the tiny gap, the brief pause, between the end of one thought and the beginning of the next. At first, this space may seem almost non-existent, but as your mind settles, you may begin to sense these moments of stillness. These gaps are direct doorways into the silent, sky-like nature of your mind. Another helpful metaphor is that of a deep lake. The surface of the lake can be agitated by the wind, creating waves, chop, and even a full-blown storm. Anyone looking only at the surface would believe the entire lake is in turmoil. But if you could dive deep beneath the surface, you would find a place of absolute stillness and silence, a place of perfect clarity, completely untouched by the chaos above. Our daily mind is the surface of the lake, constantly disturbed by the winds of life. The practice of meditation is the act of diving. We intentionally move our attention away from the surface-level chatter and reactivity, and we allow it to sink down into the profound stillness of our own being. This deep, silent refuge is always available to us, no matter how stormy the surface of our life may become. It is natural to fear that this silence might be a dead, empty void, a state of nothingness. But this is a misunderstanding. The silence we are speaking of is not an emptiness of absence. It is an emptiness pregnant with potential. It is the fertile void from which all true creativity, wisdom, and love emerge. It is the silence of the composer's mind just before the symphony is born. It is the stillness of the canvas just before the artist makes the first stroke. It is in this quiet, receptive space that we can finally hear the subtle voice of our own intuition. It is from this deep well of stillness that a genuine, unforced compassion can flow. The noisy, agitated ego is a poor creator. It can only rearrange old ideas based on fear and desire. True insight, genuine creativity, and authentic love arise not from the clamor of thought, but from the spacious silence that holds it. This, then, is the ultimate discovery of our journey inward. The peace we have been desperately seeking is not a future destination to be reached, but our own fundamental nature to be realized. We are not the fleeting, turbulent clouds of thought and emotion. We are the vast, open, and eternally peaceful sky that holds them all with effortless grace. Realizing this, that peace is not a state to be achieved, but our very nature to be uncovered, changes everything. It is the culmination of our journey. The path has led us from identifying the restless monkey mind to discovering the vast, silent sky within. The final step is to learn how to live from this place, how to embody this realization in every moment, and to carry this ocean of stillness within us, no matter where we go or what we do. The journey we have traveled together has been a deep dive into the inner workings of our own minds and hearts. We began by acknowledging the restless, chattering monkey mind that keeps us awake at night, a prisoner of our own thoughts. We learned to see the true nature of our suffering not as something inflicted upon us by the world, but as the self-inflicted wound of the second arrow. We unmasked the three poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance that fuel this suffering, and we saw that they all serve a phantom king, the illusory, constructed ego. With this understanding, we began to dismantle the very foundations of that ego by exploring the profound truths of reality, the universal law of impermanence, anicca, the radical wisdom of no self, anatta, and the beautiful, intricate web of our interconnection, dependent origination. From this philosophical foundation, we moved into practice. We learned to cultivate mindfulness, the art of arriving in our true home, the present moment. We sat with the breath, our faithful anchor in the now. We learned to soften the heart with loving kindness and to meet pain with the courage of compassion. We saw how these inner qualities can transform our outer lives through right speech and right action. We learned to befriend our most difficult emotions, to find wealth in simplicity, to let go of our heavy burdens, and to navigate the river of life with the grace of an empty boat. And finally, we turned our attention away from the noise of our thoughts and learned to listen to the vast, ever-present silence of our own awareness, realizing that we are not the fleeting clouds, but the boundless peaceful sky. This leads us to the final understanding, the culmination of our entire journey. What does it mean to live a life infused with this wisdom? What does it mean to carry this ocean of stillness within us as we walk through the world? This is the liberated life. First, it is essential to dispel the fantasy. A liberated life is not a life free from pain. It is not a state of permanent, giddy happiness where nothing ever goes wrong. The first arrows of life will continue to arrive. There will still be loss, sickness, disappointment, and the inevitable pain of aging and death. The waves will still rise on the surface of the ocean. The profound difference lies in our relationship to these waves. The person living from this understanding no longer adds the second arrow of resistance, personalization, and storytelling. The pain is felt cleanly, directly, and fully, but it is not compounded by mental anguish. The grief is allowed to be grief. Without the story, my life is ruined. The physical pain is allowed to be a sensation. Without the fearful story, this will never end. One learns to be the deep, silent ocean itself, which is not disturbed by the turmoil on its surface. The peace that is discovered is not a fragile peace that depends on everything being perfect. It is a resilient, unshakable peace that can coexist with any condition. Life lived from this place has a quality of lightness and playfulness. When the heavy burden of the ego is set down, the need to defend a fragile identity, to prove one's worth, to control every outcome, a natural ease emerges. Life is no longer seen as a serious problem to be solved or a battle to be won. It reveals itself as a magnificent, mysterious dance, and you are a participant, not the choreographer. There is a sense of humor about the mind's own persistent habits and the grand, cosmic play of existence. The world is no longer a threat, but a field for discovery. This lightness is accompanied by a profound openness and acceptance. Because you understand impermanence, you stop fighting the natural flow of life. You learn to bend like a willow in the wind, rather than standing rigid like an oak until you snap. This is not passive resignation. It is a wise and graceful alignment with reality. You still act, you still create, you still love, but you do so without the frantic, anxious grip of attachment. You plant your seeds, you tend your garden, but you do not demand that the universe provide a specific kind of weather. You learn to dance in the rain as well as in the sun. From this open heart, compassion ceases to be a practice you must remember to do and becomes the natural fragrance of your being. When you see clearly that there is no solid, separate self, the distinction between self and other becomes transparent. The suffering of another is no longer a distant event. It touches you directly. The impulse to help, to soothe, to offer comfort arises spontaneously and without deliberation, just as your left hand would instinctively rush to care for an injury on your right. It is not a moral duty, but the organic response of a heart that knows its profound connection to all of life. Ultimately, this journey leads us to the most profound realization of all, one captured beautifully in the ancient story of the fish searching for the ocean. A young fish, filled with a great spiritual longing, spends its days swimming frantically throughout the sea. It asks every creature it meets, "Can you please tell me where I can find the great ocean? I have heard it is vast, boundless, and the source of all life, and I have spent my whole life searching for it." It swims past magnificent coral reefs and through deep, silent trenches, but it is always disappointed, for it cannot find the separate thing called the ocean. Finally, exhausted, it comes across an old, wise fish resting calmly in the current. The young fish asks its question one last time. The old fish looks at it with a gentle amusement and replies, "The ocean, you are in it now. You have been in it since the moment you were born. This very water that you are breathing, this pressure that supports you, this current that moves you, this is the ocean. We are that fish. We search desperately for the peace, the silence, the enlightenment that we believe is somewhere else in a future state of mind, in a teacher, in a distant land. The final, liberating insight is that the ocean of peace we seek is the very medium in which we are already living. The silent, open awareness that is reading these words right now is the peace we have been looking for. We were never separate from it. We were only unaware of it. The search is over, not because we have found something new, but because we have recognized what has been here all along. Sleeping in silence is no longer just an aspiration for a good night's rest. It becomes a metaphor for an entire way of life. It is the ability to walk through the noisy, chaotic world with a mind that is fundamentally at rest, a heart that is at peace, and an awareness that is as spacious, clear, and boundless as the sky. The path does not lead you to a new destination. It simply, gracefully, and profoundly leads you home to the truth of what you already, and always, are. We began our journey together in the dark, in the quiet desperation of 3 a.m, a prisoner of a mind that would not stop. We felt ourselves to be a victim of this inner noise, this relentless storm of thought and anxiety. We have traveled far since that moment. We have walked a path that led us deep into the workings of our own consciousness, guided by a wisdom that is thousands of years old, yet as fresh and relevant as our very next breath. We looked squarely at the chattering monkey mind and recognized its frantic energy. We learned of the second arrow, discovering that our deepest suffering comes not from life's unavoidable pains, but from the stories we tell ourselves about them. We identified the 3 poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion that fuel these stories, and we saw how they orbit around the central, powerful illusion of a solid and separate self. From there, the path opened up, revealing a universe that is fluid, selfless, and deeply interconnected. We learned to let go, to find joy in simplicity, and to navigate life's challenges with the grace of an empty boat. We learned that our true home is not in the past or the future, but is always available to us in the sacred space of the present moment. And in that space, we discovered the most profound truth of all, that the peace we were so desperately searching for was never absent. It was simply obscured. We are not the chaotic storm of our thoughts. We are the vast, silent, and peaceful sky in which the storm appears and dissolves. The journey was never about becoming someone new, someone better, or more spiritual. It has always been about unbecoming, about letting go of the false identities and heavy burdens we carry, so that we could recognize the luminous, peaceful awareness that is our true nature. The invitation now is to carry this understanding with you, not as a memory, but as a living practice. The path does not end here. This is where it truly begins. You have been given a map and a set of tools. Now, you must walk. But you need not be daunted. The practice begins with a single, conscious breath. It continues with a moment of mindful tea drinking, a gentle word instead of a harsh one, a choice to listen rather than to react. It is found in the courage to be kind to yourself when you stumble. You do not need to call yourself a Buddhist. You do not need to adopt any dogma. You need only to practice the art of paying attention, the art of opening your heart, and the art of seeing reality with clear and compassionate eyes. The silence we have spoken of is not in a distant monastery. It is beneath the beat of your own heart. It is the stillness in which these very words are being heard. Your search for peace is over, not because you have found a final answer, but because you have realized you are the peace you were seeking. The ocean does not need to search for water. You do not need to search for stillness. You need only to be still and to know.